myself in an unfamiliar position up here, but I'm here to open the first meeting of the UK Share Prosperity Fund and Royal England Prosperity Fund Board. So the first item of business is appointment of chairman. So can I invite nominations for chairman of the board, please?
I'd say thank you, Mr. Chairman, then. But thank you, James. I would like to formally propose Councillor Philip Knowles as Leader of the Opposition to chair the UK Share Prosperity Fund and Royal England Prosperity Fund Board.
Thank you, Councillor Cook. Can I have a seconder for that, please? Are there any further nominations for chairman of the board? So with that in mind, can we have a vote on Councillor Philip Knowles being chairman, please? And that's carried. So I will hand over to Councillor Knowles and then proceed to the next item, nomination of vice chairman.
Yeah, I resign. Right, thank you very much indeed, thank you. I've got a few words to say before I try and go through the agenda that's in front of us. And it's really to say this is a new committee, a board, to look at something that is very important and in the first instance anyway has a very short time spell. And you'll have all seen that the 20th of March is a critical day, and that's only a few weeks off. So it's got a very short time scale. The project has been ongoing for some numbers of years, not quite years, but certainly a long time, and there's been a lot of work done. Some, or many of us perhaps, have reservations about how we got to this point, but this is where we start from. I think of the bloke in Wigan. I come from Wigan, if you've not noticed. I think of the bloke in Wigan, and he came out the pub, and a chap came to him and said, "Excuse me, can you tell me where the railway station is in Wigan?" He says, "Well, I could, but I wouldn't start from here." But the fact is we are starting from here with the document that we've got, and it's about taking this forward. This meeting is not going to be about looking back and how we got to here. That's a thing that's done. What we want to do is to take this forward. We've got a lot of money to consider spending, some of it very quickly, and we've got a template of how we wish to spend it, and we are governed by what we said to the government anyway. We're not completely free to spend it as we fancy this afternoon, all in favour of having a new cricket club in Bourne. We can't do that sort of thing. So what we're going to do is concentrate on how we take this forward as a board. The board has, and I made a note of this, I think 22 objectives, 9 key points, a committee of 10 and 7 weeks. So there's not a lot of time to be doing this. And clearly, when we get to PERDA, this committee would not be allowed to sit during PERDA. I believe that to be correct. Is that right? Yeah. So we've got a short time in which to get a lot done. We have the objectives for this board are to monitor, 22, I say, objectives, most of which are to consider and agree. But there are some in there that insist on we do certain things as well and monitor whatever. So I think we're going to have to work very hard as a board over the next few weeks to deliver the first bit of it, the deliverable. I intend to let everybody speak, or most people speak as they wish, except that we must keep the speeches, particularly if they are about things in the past, brief, because we've got business to do and we've got a lot of items to go through. And I intend to go through them individually, these items on here, so we consider them like that. But those people who've put submissions in, and anybody else for that matter, I will give the opportunity to speak, but please keep it brief and keep it to the point of going forward, not going backwards. Is that all right? Are everybody happy with that? Well, thank you very much indeed. We'll now move to the agenda. specifically, which is on page 1, as most agendas usually are. So, appointment of chairman and vice chairman we've done, or we need to do a vice chairman then. Have I any nominations, please, for vice chairman? Yes.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to propose Councillor Helen Crawford as the vice chairman.
Any seconders? Thank you, Judy. I sometimes use first names and so on. So is anybody going to object if I do either go between the two? You know, if I'm feeling angry, it'll be Councillor Suchby. If I'm feeling good, it'll be Annie and whatever. So a seconder has been made. Are there any other nominations? In the absence of any other nominations, I shall take a vote. All those in favour, please. That would appear to be unanimous, or one abstention. Welcome, Helen, and thank you for helping me with this. You set? Yep. Thank you very much indeed. Right. Apologies for absence. Are there any apologies for absence? Yes.
I will give Councillor Nicky Mantefield's apologies.
Absence. So Nicky Matterfield is the only apology. Do we accept that? Yes, we do. So declarations of interest. Anybody got a declaration of interest? Other than we've all got an interest somewhere in the specifics of this, because they affect our residents and our constituents, I suppose. Callum?
You need to turn your mic off.
No.
Thank you, Chairman. I think for most of us, obviously, we have our standing declarations on the council website, which declares which other, public sector bodies we may sit on, whether that be the county council or the parish councils. And obviously, I think, as Nicola was probably bringing in, at the certain points where there is an application from that body, it's obviously then appropriate, should any of us be on the panel and we are a member of that body, that we leave the room at that time. But obviously, for most of us, all of our declarations are on the website.
Thank you. I will need to declare an interest because on one of the projects in particular, I'm a governor at Grantham College, and there's a specific...
Okay, in there?
Yeah.
Oh, not as the case, maybe.
Yeah.
Sorry. Absent ourselves from the meeting so that particular area may be discussed. Fair enough. Okay. Thank you. Sorry, yes.
Just to ask a question sooner rather than later, when we come to Town and Parish Community Fund, there's a lot of people wearing two hats here in terms of towns and parishes. Can we have clarification as to what happens with those people when we discuss that?
Yes, I think we will come to that at the time that there is the case. It's no point if we've got something specific about, say, Bourne, that we suddenly make an advanced decision on what we might need to do, because the town and the parish might coincide. But if there is a very, very close interest, then I would expect the person to declare that interest and disappear. But I do understand that sometimes a case may be being made on behalf of the town and so on, and I understand that to be the case, and we can work with that. We'll take each individual decision as it comes. Who's dealing with this?
So it's just a four-noting...
Four-note, yep.
Yeah.
This is just to note the terms of reference we got. And again, it makes it clear what the lead officer's function is, and it makes it clear what the programme board's is. And we support the lead officer in making decisions. It also says we set the direction for the programme. I suggest that the direction has already been set for us in the short term. So I want everybody to accept, if you would, the terms of reference that have been placed before you. Are there any speeches, any comments?
Chairman, just a brief comment.
Yes.
Just to say that those terms of reference are as amended by Council, I think it was 2 weeks ago now, wasn't it? So there were some amendments proposed, so they have been factored in, and it's also been renumbered as well. I think the numbering was slightly out.
So are there any speakers who wish to speak about the terms of reference? In that case, we can go to the vote. All those in favour, please. And against? That is unanimous. Thank you very much indeed. Now we go on to the agreement of year one and the project list. Again, we've all had copies of this. I will take general comments first, and I will ask the people who've made submissions if they wish to speak in support of their submission. But again, I ask you to make it brief so that you don't hold up the meeting by doing so. Ashley.
Thank you, Chair. Just briefly to say that I am disappointed with the amount of consultation that members had before this list was presented. I think I made that quite clear at full council, that a lot of these were complete surprises to most councillors when they arrived on the agenda at full council. However, it's worth saying specifically before Councillor Moran or anybody else starts talking about the Deepings leisure provision, that at the time that we were consulted, and I was only aware of one consultation event, which was in the ballroom. Is it the ballroom or the Guildhall? The ballroom at the Guildhall. Yeah, we had a consultation event there, which I think was inconclusive, and I don't remember getting a lot of notes back. But on that day, at that time, we were promised a £10 million refurbished leisure centre. After that date, that plan changed, as we all know. So I think that explains why some people want to see Deepings leisure as back on this list. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Obviously, I haven't done an individual submission. You mentioned about initial comments in relation to the fund, and I would like to welcome the £3.9 million that we will be receiving from government. Any form of funding into our area is a positive thing. As I said at the council meeting, it is more prescriptive than I think what we would have hoped. And I'm sure if we had had free rein in terms of what we could do with this money, then perhaps some of the initial ideas would be very different to what has come up. I can remember at some of the, obviously, the engagement sessions that I know Nicola was at as well, that a number of the areas that we are looking at today in terms of the Appendix A, in terms of the list of potential projects, a number of those were brought up at one of the sessions, particularly that I was in attendance at. And I know, obviously, your plan, which I do support, is to go through them individually, because I think there's some on there that I do and would request that there is more information, and there's certainly one where it is an extensive amount of money that I do believe that the group that is bidding for that money should actually come into our panel and actually do a presentation. So I think today's meeting really is about going through this list, seeking the clarity on certain points, and then for those members that have submitted emails or communications in terms of additional funds for specific projects, I think what we really need to do today is agree, and I know there is a draft one, is to agree the draft bidding form for community groups and for individuals to bid into. And then I think my suggestion, as I said to you earlier, was, we potentially have a meeting within the next 2 weeks where those bidding forms are completed, they are submitted, and then we can consider those requests on the bidding form as we would on all future requests from any town, parish, community, individual groups as well. Just so it makes it a really professional process and is really open and transparent in terms of how people, groups and everybody else can bid into this fund as well.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's just generally from my understanding of it, year one projects, I understand from now until the end of March, which isn't very long, there's quite a lot of money to spend. I'm not against that. Is that possible to spend? Does it have to be spent before the end of March? Is it just a question of it can be committed? It just seems a bit difficult to try and spend that money.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Funds need to be committed by the 31st of March and need to be spent and invoiced by the 28th of April to be eligible for the year one funding.
Sorry. Those people who presented submissions. Paul, would you like to speak?
Thank you, Chair. I will be very brief. The reason I put my submission in really was because I was frightened that all these things would just be rubber stamped without discussion. My fears about that have been completely altered within the last 5 minutes, and I totally understand that the board is going to go through a process of looking at each one. However, there were a couple of things in my submission that I do want to talk about, and I am also aware that the first bit was the amount of money given to Wi-Fi connectivity in villages I thought to be a little bit, well, A, at the very least unsubstantiated, but B, more than was necessary. From that point on, I did really what my granddaughters do when I offer to buy them a curry on a Saturday night. It takes me 50 years to get them to choose something to eat, and I realise that's where we're at. Because once you start doing that and try and find out what suits a single person or a single area, it is difficult. But I did go from the premise that we've got the money, good. We need to spend the money, absolutely. We need to spend the money with a little bit of speed. We've got to do it. I don't like it, but we've got to do it. So once that's been established, which you have, Chair, through your opening remarks, it then does become on what you spend the money on. My submission was based on A, I saw something I thought which was overpriced and unnecessary. I then divided that money up into areas which I thought absolutely were important. A, giving money to districts because they are the people that should decide how to spend it, and B, there were a couple of projects that I thought weren't given enough projects. If we want young people to move forwards with their lives, we have to support them financially. So I moved some of that money down to one of the sections. Obviously, as the Chair pointed out as he gave me a lift over, and thank you for making him Chair because my journey home will be a lot easier because of it, I then chose an area that is close to my heart, arts and culture. But then I'm back to the analogy about choosing what you want to eat for a curry. So, please, Board, as you go through these lists, I would ask you to consider my version that I thought that £250,000 on Wi-Fi connectivity in the villages. I know that wasn't the total amount, it's a bit of that, which is why I didn't say get rid of it all. I said get rid of 100,000 of it and move it around. I thought that was, at this point in time, unnecessary and could totally be catered for in years 2 and 3. If you make that decision, we go back to the curry choice, don't we? What do you spend the money on, where does it go? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. We will be looking at each of the individual things, and I think there's more to understand, particularly on the item 1, the connection, more to understand on that, but we'll come to that in time. Virginia.
No, sorry.
No, beg your pardon. Mark, next. Mark, please.
Yes, thank Mr. Chairman. Thank you for allowing me to speak. And I want to thank Councillor Cook for his comments, which sort of clarify the process. I think it would be really useful, given the short time frame, is once you've agreed your way forward, and if you have a standard bid document and a timetable, if that can be circulated as quickly as possible. I'm speaking that I'm currently here representing the Grantham Mayor's Parlour today as the Deputy Mayor of Grantham, because we'll be looking at an interest in making a bid for the Gravity Fields Festival out of some of the funding. So if a timetable and documents could be agreed as soon as possible, I think that would be really useful to be sent out so the interested parties could make their bids as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ashley, please. Thank you very much. Virginia, please. I would say, Virginia, that the amount that we can spend on capital items is severely restricted, and so that the value you put on the deepings and spending a capital amount on would not be allowed under the rules, if I'm right about that.
Okay, I'm getting very confused here with what you can apply for, what you can't apply for. To be honest, I don't know why we didn't put a bid in, same as about, I think it was 14 other councils who got money this time, and get the leisure centre in Deepings fully funded by the government. There were 133 successful bids. I think it was 13 or 14 other councils have had fully funded all repairs and new leisure centres. Anyway, we are where we are. It's been pointed out to me that the list of suggestions for what we spend this money on doesn't add up to how much money we're getting. Seems to be 1.7 million short. I appreciate that I'm not going to read out everything I did at the last council meeting. I don't know whether you will listen to me or not, probably not, but it's all there in black and white. You've had the chance to read it, don't read it. Looking at the priorities for the fund, the Deepings Leisure Centre ticks every box in priority 1. It ticks more boxes in priority 2 and more boxes still in priority 3. Far more than spending hundreds of £1,000s on Wi-Fi hotspots. 10 years ago, Wi-Fi hotspots, you could have used all your little happy phrases of cutting edge, state of the art, and this, that and the other. Everybody would be over the moon. It's just unnecessary. And I appreciate it's a lot of money. But things with the group are moving along. Our cash flow's looking good. Our construction costs are looking fantastic. And we also have an extensive fundraising schedule. But that would rely on SKDC. What do you mean?
You're welcome to make your comments, but if we can move away from the funding of the leisure centre, because that is not feasible under this scheme, because it is a capital expenditure, and the capital expenditure is severely restricted under the scheme. I go back to you, Virginia.
I read nothing about that. I read nothing. Can you show me a document where it says it can't be capital expenditure?
Thank you. There's 500,000, circa 500,000 of capital. The rest is revenue funding for that entire 3.9 million. Capital's circa about 500,000. The remainder is revenue funding.
The wire connected CCTV wireless hubs, how much of that is capital, how much of that is revenue?
Mr Chairman, I know when I did my introduction remarks, it might be easier if we start to work our way down the project tracker in terms of what the breakdown is and how they're made up. For instance, I know the Wi-Fi points has come up quite a lot. Obviously, I've had the explanation about the amount and what that money is actually going towards in terms of CCTV, etc., which would provide clarity to other members. I also think in terms of the... obviously, we've had a request for funding from Councillor Moran, which is absolutely right as a local elected councillor. But I do believe we need to agree the bidding submission document that Councillor Moran can then be provided with, as can Councillor Cleaver, as can Councillor Whittington and any other members, and then they need to be filled in and resubmitted to this as a board, so we've got a proper process that we can properly evaluate any potential bids. And I'm talking about us organising a meeting within the next 2 weeks to allocate that funding and look at those bids.
Judy.
I was at the workshop and I think I got it right in my mind. But can you explain, Nicola, exactly how much money is in the fund, how much can be spent in the first year, how much is for capital projects, i.e. actual physical things, and how much is for revenue projects, i.e. things that you have to do to make things happen? If you could be absolutely clear as to how much is in each of those, the remit for each of those, and how much time there is for each of those, then perhaps everybody in the room can be absolutely clear on that. Thank you.
We'll move on to the individual items quickly. I did promise that the people who presented submissions should have the opportunity to do so. I'll ask Nicola to answer that specific question. Answer it if you don't mind.
Is this the CCTV? So the overall allocation is 86% revenue and 14% capital. So roughly about £600,000 for capital over the 3 years of the scheme. The total funds approximately 3.9 million, so it would be approximately 3.3 million allocated to revenue.
Briefly, please. Virginia first, please.
Yeah, I understood that the sort of form filling bit to apply was for town and parish councils, and that's a very limited amount that they're bidding for, isn't it? It's 2,000 to 5,000.
If you bear with us, we'll be going through each item, and there will be opportunities to speak on each item as we go through, but also the opportunity to bid over the next couple of weeks so that we can consider any fresh bids. Based on this as a starting point, over the next couple of weeks, which will be considered as quickly as possible so that we can incorporate it, where appropriate, into the next draft of this to be agreed in the end of March and to be spent by the end of April.
Thank you. Are you saying, I'm trying to work out what Callum has said, that each project needs to bid? So the projects that have been put on here by officers, I think... Oh, right, so if...
Thank you, Mr. Just for clarity, what I'm saying is we have had, and I know that there are a number of people in this room that wish to bid for funding, whether that be individual members, whether that be community groups and others. We need to have a formal form or set agreement in terms of what it is we are considering. I've received, for example, an email from Councillor Cleaver and others. So in terms of Councillor Moran's, obviously I've got Councillor Moran's email here. What I'm saying is, for us to make a decision on funding, I think there needs to be a proper process behind this. There needs to be a proper form, which we then can consider, which gives it very clearly on a set form. That's the same for everybody, so it's a fair process.
Hold on, one meeting, please. Yes, Ashley, can we move along, please?
Right. These have arrived via full council, and we're going to go through each one of these line by line. Virginia and Richard and I think Paul have all followed the process that they were told to follow, and they have brought their projects here. I think at the very least we should be putting a line for the Deepings, a line for Richard's projects, a line for Paul's projects at the bottom, because we're just getting kicked down the road. If we were serious, we've had this... Sorry. I'd like to be able to continue without barracking, and that's to say that we've had this project in the oven since July at least. We've come up with these great things, and now at this hour the leader is saying, well, what we really need is to put together some kind of form so that people can make new bids. That could have been done before Christmas. That could have been done before version 26. The way that I think that this is being done is to kick any unpopular projects further down the road.
Well, I think that is absolute nonsense. Nothing is being kicked down the road at all. There has to be a process now of this document is a prototype of what we need, what we've agreed, so that we can get £3.87 million or whatever it is. Now we're going to tweak it if necessary in the next quickly so that we can put the actual project in and we can get the money sorted. It's not kicking anything down the road at all. Anything can go into this, and there will be a meeting in a couple of weeks' time probably when these things will be discussed. And it gives the same opportunity to anything you're saying. I'm not going to let you continue arguing, I'm sorry. We've got to move on and get on with the business, because we're spending too much time thinking about the process when the business needs sorting out. Sorry?
We should have thought about the process before we arrived in this room, not make it up while we're here.
I'm sorry, we're not making it up when we're here. A process has been organised, and this is the process we're going to follow. As I say, what has happened over the last 12 months, and your complaints and your concerns and everything else like that, other people have same concerns or different concerns, but what we've got is what we've got, and we'll start from this point and try to take it forward to the satisfaction of the majority of the people, and ultimately to the people of South Kesteven, who are the most important people here, not ourselves. So, Is it about this particular subject?
In the event of, if in the event of, I don't know whether it's an unlikely event or not, because of the short timescales of getting the bids in, the allocation for the first year, if it's not spent, is it carried over to the following years? Thank you.
If the answer to that is no. Sarah? I'll come back to you. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr Chairman, and I really appreciate your comments. I'm on the board. I'm no expert, but how it's been explained to me is it's very much like the Community Grant Fund, and I think it's, you know, we've got the money and we're very fortunate to have the money because a lot of councils didn't get awarded the money, so I congratulate Southcare Stephen and their officers. And I'm really keen. Nothing will get kicked down the road, not while I'm sat in this room, and I'm sure the rest of us while we're sat in this room. So, yeah, I'm fully supportive. Let's go down the list. Let's do a really good job, and let's be fair to everyone. Thank you, Mr Chairman.
I just want to confirm that the Year 1 funding has to be fully committed by the 31st of March and spent by the 28th of invoice and spent by the 28th of April. Any uncommitted funds by the 31st of March and any unspent funds by the 28th of April would need to be returned to government.
Thank you. I want to move on now. Richard, you're going to bring up your points during the course of the next items, or do you want to make a brief comment now?
Well, do you want to get the first one explained?
Thank you. Yeah, I don't want to take up a lot of time. Obviously, my points, I put them in writing with 24 hours. Everyone can see them, so I don't feel the need to intervene on these as you go through the list. I don't think that would be fair on the board, because I'm not a member of the board. I would just add a couple of points. I kind of share what's been said. We know what was said at full council. It would have been helpful to have had some background papers here, to have had a draft bidding submission document in the papers for this meeting. I don't think that's a particularly unreasonable thing to ask for. And it would have been nice to see some of the rationale behind, you know, why there's $1 million for that as opposed to 250,000 for that. What the thinking is up to date to get to where we are would have been good background, so we could have, you know, started this meeting very quickly. And people would understand and not be asking questions that have already been answered in the papers that were put forward already in the pack for this meeting. One other thing, yeah, just to pick up on what Virginia said, I have converted the levelling up document into an Excel spreadsheet, and I did notice that the funding only adds up to 2.223 million, not 3.4 of the revenue or the 3.9 for the full amount. So obviously it would be helpful to know what the plan is to put the extra 1.2 million in, or 1.7 million in, that isn't in that spreadsheet at the moment. But apart from that, I'm happy to, as long as the things I've put in writing are considered by the committees, goes through line by line without me having to intervene, I'd be very happy. Thank you very much.
Alison, have you got a quick answer to that? Then we can start going line by line through the...
I'm just reviewing the commitments. We know Year 2 is more or less 100% committed, so I'm just checking the Year 3 figures.
Yes. Remember, we're concentrating today over the next 7 weeks on this year's proposals, because they've got to be in 6-7 weeks' time, and they've got to be spent in the next 11 weeks. So we try and concentrate on that. And I'm going to take these line by line. The top one is the CCTV wireless hubs. And I think there's some clarification to be for this particular item. So who's going to do that? Callum?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this project is really two parts. So our current CCTV network runs on an analogue line. As part of this project to provide the Wi-Fi, we need to upgrade that line to a digital line. The offshoot of that will be that we can then use that line to upgrade our existing CCTV cameras to digital as well. Now, there is the potential in the future to complement that existing CCTV network, to use redeployable mobile CCTV as well that would run off that Wi-Fi network. So the whole project includes all of that. So that's broken down into two elements in effect. 56,000 of that is the element that relates to the provision of the Wi-Fi hubs themselves, and approximately 188 of that is to upgrade all of our existing analogue lines to digital to enable that to happen.
So what we're saying is that the Wi-Fi allows us to take the advantage of better CCTV. Is that correct?
Probably, Mr. Chairman. A question then for Anne-Marie. I mean, I'm okay with that. Are we sure then that we can commit and spend that money that's allocated to that by the timescale?
We have that finalised from BT. We will have a start date and an end date on that, but we're confident that we can place that order with them and get that timeline at the moment.
Thank you. What's the revenue capital split?
So all of the 244 will be capital, and the 20,000 per year will be revenue.
First of all, I'd like to draw attention to what I think Councillor Fallows put in his bid, that this should be reduced from 244 down to 150. But on top of that, we were told that this whole £3 and a bit million, we've only got £600,000 of capital expenditure, and we're saying that we should give more than a third of that to the first project that we spend in the first. I think that's poor thinking. I mean, I'd add on to that I don't think many people are unhappy about the lack of Wi-Fi in our town centres. My daughters can find Wi-Fi wherever they are. In the middle of the Sahara Desert, they can find it. So personally, I think that this is money that we're spending because we've got a deadline and we've got to spend it by it. And to spend all the capital money on it is tragic, because it shoots us in the foot for the things we want to do in the future.
Thank you. Actually, if you had listened to the thing, the majority of this money has been spent on CCTV, with the Wi-Fi expenditure allowing the CCTV to take effect. So it is not money getting Wi-Fis for me and you. Not that I'd ever want to get a Wi-Fi, but I wouldn't be able to know how to use it if I got it. But it's not for that. It's to facilitate a much bigger resource in order to provide better CCTV and up-to-date CCTV. And I know for certain that suggestion came from at least one town in the area, Bourne. So it is not about giving Wi-Fi to individuals or to businesses even, which I thought it might be, and in the towns. It is all about facilitating a better CCTV service, and we should consider it in that respect. Briefly.
We're told we've got an award-winning CCTV service already. My biggest problem with this is that it's all capital, and it's taking away more than a third of the capital allowance that we've got for the whole project.
This benefits the whole district. Having said that, we have an analogue system in a world that is no longer analogue, and we need to a council to look forward. Now then, the proposal is, and I put it to you, that we spend this money on CCTV with Wi-Fi assisting that process or facilitating that process. That still stands. If anybody wants to present a case for change of use of some of the money over the next 2 weeks, we are going to agree a form in which we're to do that, and then people have the opportunity to put that forward. But at the moment, it seems perfectly reasonable to understand what this is being spent on.
Thank you, Chairman. I do think the explanation is helpful, and I think you've already made the point about, yes, we do have a good CCTV service in this district, and actually this will improve and enhance our current service. It will upgrade some of our aged technologies. I think you've already made the point about this does cover all four corners of our district, but actually one of the other areas it will help with is actually in rural fly tipping and actually securing cameras that are more covert to enable us that do represent the rural areas to deal with people fly tipping in our lay-bys and on certain areas. So for me, I see it as, yes, it is an investment in our CCTV, which is one of our great things that we offer as a district council. But actually, the wireless hub is, I suppose, an added bonus on the side, because actually it upgrades all of our existing equipment, which, quite frankly, if it was coming out of our baseline funding, we would struggle to be doing financially. So, with the explanation that has been provided, I am in support of this one.
Yeah, Marie, am I right that the new system, the digital system, it improves for security, for policing as well, and like Callum said, fly tipping, but also it does. When you say mobile, does that function with the police as well directly? Will it make basically our areas even safer? Which I think it probably will be, but I'd like you to confirm.
Okay, so firstly, the quality of the images on digital cameras is far superior to the analogue cameras that we have now, so that obviously helps. The additionality, which could be the future deployment of mobile cameras, certainly would help with other elements of crime, both fly tipping, and the police use our cameras as well. So anything that we put out there and deploy, they would be able to have access to through our existing protocols.
Thank you, Chairman. No, I mean, now we've got the full explanation. I'm in fully support of this. We do need to improve the cameras. We do need to get into the digital age, as we say. Analogue is no longer usable by a lot of people. So, no, I think this is a good use of the funds, because I know that the council would, as Callum said, would struggle to fund this.
Thanks very much indeed for that explanation, because I was quite horrified when I thought you were just going to sort of put in a few extra Wi-Fi opportunities in the deepings, because we have got those in the library and so on. So I can absolutely see why it's a good idea for CCTV, particularly in the rural parts of my ward where we're continually getting fly tipping in specific places, and that must, that obviously is costing a lot of money to keep coming along and collecting. So it will have, although it's a capital outlay, it will have revenue savings going forward as well. So that's excellent. And I just wanted to say, I think the beauty of this board is that we have got some money that we're going to spend, which is a great position to be in, because we're not very often in that position. Could we proceed in a consultative way, everyone, rather than being aggressive? Because I don't think there's any need for that. So I welcome anyone that's going to be consultative this afternoon, because I think in that way, Chairman, as you've described, we can all actually look at the individual pieces of work that we've got to look at and come to a proper agreement. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to say that the lines that are analogue at the moment, when analogue is switched off, we won't have CCTV to back that up, because we're not on digital. So it is actually crucial that we do this investment for the safety of our district. Thank you.
When is analogue to be switched off? When is analogue to be switched off?
Do we have information on that?
BT haven't provided us with a definitive timescale, but we're already finding that we're no longer able to purchase analogue cameras. So when analogue cameras fail, they cannot be replaced. The adapters that we currently use are now in shorter supply as well. So it's a case of, yes, the line will fail, but the cameras will fail first and then potentially can't be replaced.
Yes, just one point of information. Sorry, just one point of information in regard to Judy's question about fly tipping. Fly tipping currently costs us about £60,000 a year in terms of clearing it up, because we have a dedicated two-person team who are out five days a week. so hopefully that gives an indication of what we currently spend. And we also spend money on enforcement action as well. I'm sure Anne-Marie's got the details. But I do know in terms of CCTV cameras, there are parts of Grantham that it's been reported back that there are areas that are being used for drug dealing where there are no CCTV cameras. And I'm sure this is going to be the same in all, because unfortunately drug dealing these days happens in small market towns. It happens in Grantham, Bourne, the Stamford and the Deepings. It happens everywhere. So if we can, improve it, it will help, I think, to as a crime prevention, and also give the public a lot more feeling of safety.
Thank you, Chairman. Just doing a little bit of research in the meeting just for confirmation. So I think Openreach, as part of BT, have confirmed that they would be seeking to switch off in 2025 in terms of analogue systems. If you're willing, Chairman, I would happily propose item 1 as a expenditure.
You may go on.
Could I ask that it is amended down by 25%?
Really should ask for that in writing, please. In that case, it falls. Therefore, we put item 1 to the vote. All those in favour, as proposed by Kellen and seconded by Helen. Against? Yes. And abstain? That's it. Carried. Thank you very much indeed. Mobile phone hub. Who wishes to speak on that, first of all? Kellen, please.
I don't know if I'm... I don't know if I'm being too forward on this one. However, due to the amount that is being requested on this, I would request that at the next meeting that we have, which obviously we've talked about within the next couple of weeks, that we actually invite the people that are bidding for this funding to come and do a presentation to us so we can fully understand the amount and what is being asked for.
Sounds like an excellent suggestion. Annie, please.
Thank you, Chair. The bread and butter thing first came on our radar when they approached Invest SK looking for premises to have one of their major distribution hubs in the area. And John Hines, who works in the Invest SK department, when he listened to actually what they did, he thought that it was amazing, and he brought it to the cost of living working group to find out more information. So they've given a presentation to the cost of living working group, and it is amazing. And I think it would be fantastic if they could come in and give a presentation to you. But what I would like to say is that in the document it's spread over 3 years. It is my understanding that they need that all of that money in a one-off upfront to be able to set up the 5 distribution hubs and purchase a vehicle. So I do want us to bear that in mind as well. Thank you, Chair.
Are there any other speakers?
So should we go to the...
Richard.
I did ask in my submission what BBT stands for.
The bread and butter thing.
Mr. Chairman, could I therefore make a recommendation that we defer the decision on this item to our next meeting and invite the bread and butter thing to present to us?
All those in favour, please show. Links Inspire. Who's going to present this? Certainly, there we are. Go on.
A lot of us in the room. They've been delivering programmes predominantly within schools and with young people for some time now. They have been a recipient of European structural funds, which, if we remember rightly, these are the replacements of, and they've delivered those very successfully over the years. they've approached us to deliver and to continue to deliver their programme within schools and with young people, along the same lines that they've delivered successfully through European social funds over the past few years. It is what it says there, working across leisure, arts, sports, and helping with the well-being of young people within our communities. And as I say, a well-known, well-versed organisation that have delivered this type of programme for a number of years, hence the reason they approached us when they knew European structural funds would be coming to an end.
Yeah, thank you, John. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think it's the same as my daughter took. She's 18 now, but she took part in Aspire when I was working full-time, and it is brilliant. She would spend her, you know, in the holidays, go and play any sort of sport, which she's still interested in sport, and I think off the back of it, the primary schools very much encourage it, don't they? So I'm fully supportive of anything like this, you know, especially nowadays, you know, working parents, and I'd much rather the children be out doing activity than behind a screen. So yeah, it's a great project, and as I say, I've got evidence of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll endorse Councillor Selby's here on this one. I personally know Vincent Britton very well. I've known him, I think, for as long as I've been a councillor. He's been engaged in so much in our district, engaging with schools, supporting families. You know, they host the Mini Olympics every year at the Mears Leisure Centre. It's a fantastic thing how all of the schools from the local area get involved and engaged. Inspire Plus have their own apprentices as well as training, and obviously one of the key aspects of this report is about skills training for young people and initiatives supporting healthy nutrition for families. I'm in full support of this, and you know, we've been partners with Inspire Plus now for a considerable amount of time, and they've always delivered as far as I've ever been aware.
Yeah, I'm sure they're really good, you know, but I've never heard of them before. So I just wondered how accessible, you know, how they kind of deliver their services, and how accessible they are to everybody in the whole district.
I'm sorry I haven't heard of them, Judy. I apologise. I really did assume everybody had. They predominantly their engagement is with schools, so that they don't engage with us to then engage. They engage predominantly with schools. And they engage with schools right across the district. So, I mean, happily, we can get a list of them, what schools they are engaged with. That wouldn't be a problem.
It's never come up in anything from the schools. It may well happen in Deeping, but I've never heard of it happening. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm just looking at the website of Links Inspire, and it looks very good. They appear to be heavily involved in the running of swimming pools and encouraging sports and leisure. Would it be positive? And I think this is a good one, because I think it looks as if we're basically writing a cheque to them and saying, there you are, get that spent in the next few, which means that this is one of the more deliverable projects, because by the 28th of April, we will have got the money to where it goes. Mr. Hind, will it be possible, as the programme goes on over years 2 and 3, for organisations that want to set up sports facilities around the district to go to Links Inspire and get consultancy as part of this project? And if so, would for example, an organisation that wanted to create a sports facility in the Deepings need to dig into the money that's there, or should we be putting more money into it now?
What I would say to that is, firstly, knowing Vincent as I do, as Kellum does, he would very much welcome the opportunity to work with more and more sports and leisure providers and facilities across the district, because that's what he's wedded to and that's what he's very passionate about. I think in terms of others that come forward, the money that Vincent's got, or the money that's Inspire Plus have got, will deliver the Inspire Plus programme. I have witnessed firsthand where Vincent has supported other community groups to apply for other funding, possibly the Town and Parish Community Fund in this instance, but it's not a closed shop as far as Vincent is concerned, and I say he has certainly worked with other leisure, sports, community organisations so they can access funding to deliver what they want to as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd be more than happy to arrange an introduction to Vincent, to anybody that would be interested, and happy to circulate the details. I know Vincent also, in terms of the work in the schools, he's an ardent campaigner for the School Sports Premium. So the schools that do receive that can then obviously choose where they allocate that funding, and a number of schools within our district allocate that to Inspire Plus. So you will see the Inspire Plus ambassadors and teams working in schools across the district.
Thank you. Inspire works with every school in the district, and they also deliver half-term activities, including free meals for those children who might not otherwise get them. It is a charity. I think it might be an idea to actually get them in for a presentation at some point, not necessarily to this board, but it might be an idea because they do some fantastic things with schools across the district.
Opposed to them, please. Thank you, Sarah. Seconder, please. Thank you, Callum. All those in favour, please show. That would appear to be unanimous. Thanks very much indeed. Oh, right. Okay, that's going to be a separate agenda item, so I'll move on to the next one, which is Culture, Arts and Heritage Fund, please. Thank you. Are we happy that Nicola presents it?
Thank you very much. So this effectively, because it's just for year one and we've got to spend the money quickly, we've got 3 projects on the table. Clearly, there could be more in subsequent years. The first is a mural in, is that how you pronounce it? Mural, thank you, in Stamford Arts Centre. The second is an Arts Around the District event, and the third being nature workshops as well that would cover the district.
Could you please elaborate what is meant by Arts Around the District and what is meant by nature workshop?
Okay, so the Arts Around the District will be free and accessible art workshops for children and young adults located across the 4 market towns aimed at engaging younger residents in the arts. And the nature workshops are classes meant to connect participants to nature and provide a basis for utilising natural materials in visual arts.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Can I just ask Nicola a clarification question? For instance, suppose that we were to put a bid in for Gravity Fields. Is it possible to have funding from more than 1 year? Or will you only visit each project once? Or will it be a case of it's one project but the funding may be split between 2 years? Just some clarity around that I think would be useful. Thank you.
Were you going to speak, Alison? Yes, so in answer to your question, yes, you know, if your project runs over different years, then yes, we could fund different years, providing there's sufficient money in the pots.
So this money has to be spent by the end of April, is that right? This 30,000 has to be. It's because it's not very long. That's all. And I'm concerned about, you know, making sure that everybody's aware of what's going on, and publicising things, which does sometimes take a long time in itself. If there was nothing in year one, could that 30,000 be? It's got to go in. Got to go in year one.
So we've got 3 projects, I guess, at roughly £10,000 each. Who's going to deliver the nature programme? Who's going to deliver the mural? And who's going to deliver the creative arts around the district? Because from what I've heard, I'm all for the arts. We need more of it and all that. But if there was an alternative to put some of that money to pre-existing organisations in the district, including Deepens Library, then I think that the homegrown option might be as good as the professionals flying in. But I don't know who the professionals are, so I can't say that.
In the meantime.
Thank you. And I suppose, actually, I don't disagree with Councillor Baxter's point there in terms of actually allocating. If we allocated £30,000, we can agree on some things, actually. If we allocated £30,000, is it, because there's a number of groups in Stamford, let's say, or, Bourne, that potentially could benefit from this funding, or the other one, and forgive me if I'm wrong on this one, but for instance, I think the 110,000 for years 2 and 3, I would say absolutely right, and obviously there'll be more projects to come through that in terms of events, whether or not Judy would like some funding for the Deepings Literary Festival in obviously years 2 and 3, that's another potential opportunity. But the 30,000 in this year, bearing in mind how quickly we'd have to spend it, actually, if you think about a lot of our communities at the present time, they're all looking at, whether or not they're putting on coronation events and everything else, is actually why wouldn't we just put the 30,000 into, and I know we're coming on to it later, but just allocating that 30,000 into the town and parish community fund as an additional amount. I think that's the other aspect.
I think you've got an answer.
Thank you. So Karen Whitfield, under the leadership of Karen Whitfield, are these 3 projects. We can deliver these projects, 2 of which I've made clear will cover the district as well, whereas obviously the mural will be at Stamford Arts Centre directly, but we can deliver those before the end of March.
I think the concern that probably I have, and probably others have on that one as well, is it's not a very long time frame. So if you think about booking tickets for events and engaging in community sessions like these, you're looking at a lead-in period of much longer than sort of the week's notice that we've got. Whereas actually we could do that in, for instance, year 2. There's nothing to stop some of those projects moving over, and actually just reallocate the 30,000 in year 1 into the community fund to support other projects.
Obviously, it's clear that if in a situation like this, if anybody on the board decides, or off the board decides to put in a request to change, there's going to be an opportunity in a form available to do that, and it will be discussed in a couple of weeks or whenever this meets again, so that if anybody has doubts about any particular expenditure and thinks of alternatives, then the opportunity is there to keep them on the water, as we've got just a moment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Coming back to the submission I made on this particular item, I did ask what the process for bidding for the 30k would be. There clearly isn't, from what I've understood, not going to be a bidding process. It's already been all done. And so when I saw this document, when it was first published for full council, I took the liberty of contacting people who are active in the arts in Stamford and said, look, this is going to be this 30,000 because of what it actually says there, which is the fund directly targets community engagement projects and outreach events. So I emailed in good faith those people and said, this is what the council was planning to do. It's planning to, on this tight time scale, fund directly targeting community engagement projects and outreach events. Is there anything you'd like to put on before the 31st of March? I've got some replies. And one of them has been put forward by email in the last few days. I presume I've then got to turn around to that person and say, it's a no-go.
I think where I was coming from with this proposal is, obviously we've got so long in year 1, technically, and I think some of these potential, I think the right thing to do is to have a culture, arts and heritage fund. And I think that it's then right that people can then bid into that using the form that we haven't yet agreed and everything else into that fund. So the points that Richard was making in terms of engagement, yes, absolutely. But in terms of the 30,000, I think in terms of the short time scale, I think we could leave it. My push would be I would move the Stamford mural, the Arts Around the District events and the nature workshops into years 2. So you've actually got proper time to actually arrange them and organise them and promote them. The 30,000 we could leave unallocated, and hopefully if Councillor Cleaver's got some ideas in terms of funding and others around the district, then we can have bids for that. But if not, then I think any surplus should go into the community fund for the parishes to bid into almost.
Who was that? It was Judy, and I'll come to you. Yeah, I'll come to you.
My concern about this is that we had that welcome back money last year, didn't we? Was it last year or the year before? Anyway, and that money had to be spent very quickly, and it's really difficult, I think, to come from from 0 to 60 miles an hour very quickly, and get all of that out there, and be in the right place at the right time with the right people seeing it. And so I don't think we should put us, if we can sort of try and perhaps what Kellam's saying would work, and try and stop having that kind of immediate kind of stress of getting it out there and then perhaps not getting. The worst of it is that you put something on that nobody knows about. And that's the thing, isn't it? I mean, the community fund actually, I think, is going to come to council to. I think there's some money left over this year, so there is an idea that there's that money that's left should be used for coronation projects, perhaps, and that would be a bidding process. Only because we were at the meeting last week to discuss that, but. Could that go? Was that a possibility that 30,000 could go to the community fund, which would then be spread out over longer in the year, or would that be disingenuous? Does it have to actually be delivered by the end of April? Sorry.
Thank you. So we absolutely need to spend this money before the end of March. Otherwise we lose the money. So we can't lift and shift this to another year, the 30,000. We've got the 3 projects and they're ready to go now. So we've got the team working on them, and we can deliver those. We've got commitment, we can deliver those if you'll agree to them.
Thank you.
I'm still waiting for an answer to who we think is going to deliver these between now and the 28th of April. Is there an answer to that yet?
Forgive me, I did answer. I said it was under the leadership of Karen Whitfield. Well, there are different people reporting into Karen Whitfield, but under her leadership there are 3 separate projects that can be delivered.
Karen Whitfield's going to paint a mural.
No. She's not going to, but under her leadership she'll be controlling those 3 projects, and that can happen.
Chair, I'm really worried about this. This was only presented to full council a couple of weeks ago. I think we're being bounced into this. It seems clear to me, I'm not going to make aspersions, nasturtiums, whatever they're called, but it seems to me that there is a project to paint a mural for something like 10,000 quid, and there is a project to do these nature things for 10,000 quid, and we've already got people earmarked to do that work seemingly without a tender process, and seemingly we don't have the ability, even when the leader and I are on the same page on this, we don't have the ability to say anything different to the officers. What's going on?
It seems a bit strange that on one hand we're saying, can we get these projects delivered? And then on the other hand we say, well, they must have already been in the line if they're going to be delivered, and somehow that is both of those are wrong. As I understand it, Callum has suggested a way to try and overcome this particular problem, and it can be put on the agenda for the next meeting so that we can look at that as a reasonable and a practical way of going forward. And that can be put through the appropriate form and can be discussed at the next meeting. I'm delighted that I've got some agreement between the two. It's the way I tell them, it's whatever. So I think there's a way forward for anybody who is feeling very concerned about this, and we can explore that way forward. And unless Nicola is going to say that's not possible, then I will allow debate to continue.
I can see what everybody's point of view is, but if we delay this a fortnight, then that's a fortnight delayed for getting all that information out there for these 3 projects to be carried out. And then we run the risk of losing £30,000 that could be spent on projects. And because I see where you're coming from, but obviously they've had to think ahead and say, we've got this money, we could do these projects. If we get the go date today, then, 5 o'clock, the email goes, everybody go, get on with it. But if we leave it a fortnight and then discuss and then we go, oh yeah, okay, then we're a fortnight behind, delaying getting these 3 projects off the ground, and that's my concern.
Thank you for allowing me to speak, Mr. Chairman. I totally agree with Callum and what he's proposing to moving forwards, but Ashley has got a really good point. I could give you 2 projects in Bourne in the next 2 minutes that could and should be allowed to have funding from SKDC. Now, I accept the position we're in, and any arts project to me is a good arts project, but I want the board to be aware of the fact that 3 projects are chosen subjectively. I would hope to see at the end of these projects, if you agree to them, that they are analysed and their impact on the community is very obvious. It is my experience, and I apologise if anyone is involved in this, is that most arts projects that are managed by SKDC go down the tubes at a rate of knots. So therefore, there has got to be some way of valuing these projects once they are done, and I am really not happy at the fact that there are 4 towns, all of which in the last week, who could have put forward projects for this funding. They could have spent the funding and the funding could have gone into those. Now, I accept the fact that sometimes projects have to be district-wide, and I am happy to go, brilliant, let's see these 3 projects. But I would like the things that I've said considered.
I think it's probably what I'm going to say. I hope that you weren't impugning our administrative staff in fulfilling things, please.
I beg your pardon, Chair, I wasn't listening. Ask again.
Some of your comments seem to impugn the quality of our administrative staff in getting on with these projects. Would you withdraw that as a criticism, please, as direct criticism of people?
I will gladly withdraw any of my statements that caused offence. Having said that, the statement was based on a particular art project which was put out to Bourne last 2 years ago, and I think it had a combined audience of 3. So what I will say is I will gladly withdraw my comments if they offend, but I also, if any officer or chair or anyone else wants to come and see me, I will give you chapter and verse of projects that have been embarked on that I consider to be less than good enough. But if I've offended, I apologise.
Thank you. Tell me all about it in the car home. Yeah. I've got...
I was just wondering whether clarity could be given. The funding just needs to be paid by us by the end of April. The projects don't need to be completed, or do they? Can we just clarify that, please?
The projects need to have been completed by the 28th of April and invoiced and paid for by the Council. The funds need to be fully committed by the 31st of March to the events.
Obviously, Councillor Fellows made a point. The problem, and I don't think it's the problem isn't that of our officers. The problem is the government is putting, I think, very difficult deadlines on the use of this money, which makes it, difficult to use. And so I think it's tricky. I would refer back to you may well have been referring to the Welcome Back Fund thing, where you had, very small time frame to deliver a project, and this sort of smacks of that, I think. And it was nothing to do. Nobody could have done it in that, so. All the, when you're putting, I put on quite a lot of events in my time, and it just takes a long time to put them on, to get sort of people to get engaged with them, and then to turn up to them. So sort of putting something on out of nowhere is tricky because people don't know where, the people that are delivering it know about it very well because they've been working on it for the last number of weeks. But the public just kind of have it, foisted on them very necessarily at a late stage, and they're not thinking about it. They're not thinking of going, and that's why you get small audiences to it. So I do think this particular issue is a bit fraught with with problems. The other thing I would just say is that I think Stamford. I might just have a particularly Stamford-orientated Insta and Facebook feed, but I get a lot of information about workshops and activities in the arts that are happening around Stamford all of the time. That might be because Sam Rodden is in Stamford and she's a great, huge proponent of the arts and very able. But for me, and I'm also greatly in favour of Stamford Arts Centre, as you know. But having a £10,000 mural in Stamford Arts Centre doesn't exactly hit me over the head and think, Christ, that's a really good idea. To be honest, to be perfectly honest, because it is very it's £10,000 going into Stamford. When we've only got £30,000 going into all of the 4 towns, and we have in Deeping, and I'm not suggesting we put a mural anywhere in Deeping, but I'm just going to fly the flag for Deeping. We have, like it or not, and I'm not going to mention the word, but we have had a bit of a hit round the head with a baseball racket this year. So, I'm flying the flag for Deeping in terms of this money too. So, I just wouldn't be in favour of a mural going into Stamford Arts Centre at this stage,
You want to clarify something, yes? I'll come to you after Mark.
Thank you. If I may, your ideas that you have, and if you can deliver them before in this timeline for year 1, I think would be absolutely brilliant to include in the town and parish community fund that we have got a separate item in a moment. So Councillor Fellows' ideas, if you've got projects that you can deliver within that timeline, then that would be from that fund, if that's any help. And then in terms of the mural would not cost the whole £10,000. I think that we're looking at approximately 8,000 for that, so it's not the entire amount.
Sorry. Is it specific to that point?
Are you saying that £30,000, which is being earmarked to spend before the end of April in the Cultural Arts and Heritage Fund, could be subsumed into another fund, which, with something else, so that doesn't exist? So we could put that money, that 30,000, into something else, which we could all agree on. Is that what you're saying? No, into the town and parish community fund. No, you're not saying that.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying if you've got other projects that you're suggesting that you can bring forward, that there is another fund that's available for them. But this meets the criteria that government have set us, so hence why we're looking for your agreement to them.
Yeah, I mean, forgive me, Mr. Chairman, but I thought the purpose of today's meeting was to agree the process for bidding and the forms, not to consider specific projects. So I'm a little confused as to why specific projects are being considered, because I thought that it was going to come back in 2 weeks' time. So I just need a bit of clarity around that, because, again, I can think in Grantham of if organisations, I'm sure we can think that in all of our parts of the district, had been contacted, they could have come up with, small, short, little projects. And actually, you could have spent £30,000 maybe on 10 or 15 smaller projects. I'm just a little concerned. Anyway.
Yes, can I answer? It is difficult to talk about existing projects without talking sometimes about alternatives. So alternatives must be mentioned at this. I've said 2 or 3 times that if there can be a change, then there is a process for delivering a change. We must go through that process, and that process is still open. Difficult, as Nicola has said, but it's still open, so on, and that the process is still available to people. So I'll take Ashley now because it's on the list. That's how we saw it. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Oh, it just seems bizarre to me that we've got an oven-ready project for an £8,000 mural that just happens to be slightly below the threshold for going out to tender, that nobody, it seems, had heard of among members until we walked into this room this afternoon. And similarly with the nature, and similarly with the other one. If we've got any power in this room at all to change what the officers are telling us we have to do, then I would like to say that we severely reduce the amount of money that is available for those projects, perhaps reduce them by £2,000 or £3,000 each, and allocate them to whoever comes along with the pro forma that we're going to invent in a minute, in the next couple of weeks. I am sure, I mean, I don't often find myself in the room agreeing with both Callum and Judy, but I'm sure that there are projects in the Deepings that could fill in a form for £6,000 and say we can absolutely guarantee this is going to get spent before the end of April, if we're told what the rules are. And I'm sure that if we had been told at the point when someone first phoned up, Murals Are Us of Stamford, if we knew at that time that there were projects available, then every Bourne and Stamford and the Deepings and Grantham all could have put in competitive projects. We are being bounced into this, and it ain't right.
Thank you. You've made that point now. Thank you. Virginia.
Thank you. I want to go back to this split, which is one of the can-kicking methods I've been given for the Deepings bid, that only 14% can be spent on capital projects. Is this a central government ruling? Yes. So how are Caerphilly, South Holland and Trafford, to name just 3, rebuilding their leisure centres with the 58 million they've had between them?
The function of this board is to look at the funding that's available to us. If you want to raise any potential of the funding, whatever else, this is not the place to do it. We are considering the funding that is proposed in front of us, and that is what we're considering at the moment, and that's what we're trying to deal with. Any other funding that you might wish to do, you have to bring up at a different point of view.
It's not other funding, it's round 2 UK Share Prosperity Fund funding that they've received.
They've received.
I'm on the government website with the list.
Sorry. We are dealing with the funding of £3.78 million, or whatever the number is, that we've got in front of us, and we're not dealing with this with a potential £50 million, £40 million, £20 million, or £10 million that we may or may not have got, we may or may not have applied for. This is a different fund for Deepings, unfortunately, Virginia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm very happy to have a conversation with Councillor Moran later about that specific type of funding she is talking about, because I am aware of it. In terms of this, I would like to move things on. What I would like to say is I think I've taken on board all the comments that have been made here today on this one. I agree with some and disagree with others. But I'm not proposing to progress with the 3 bullet points at this present time. I would propose that we leave the £30,000 in the Culture, Arts and Heritage Fund. and I'll propose that over the next 2 weeks before our next meeting, we seriously advertise and promote the form that we are going to develop, and we show it and present it, and hopefully we will get bids from community groups, art groups, culture groups around the district to then bid in to us as a council, and then in 2 weeks' time we can then make a decision on what we are supporting.
Just on that point, we need to make sure that the clarification that I sought earlier, we need to make sure that anybody that, you know, in our marketing, advertising this, that the projects can be completed before the 28th of April.
No, it's fine. I was going to make the same offer as Councillor Cook to Councillor Moran to explain the Levelling Up Fund to her, but she's gone, so fine.
You're jumping a gun. You're jumping a gun. Can I have I've got a proposal in a second. Can I?
Go to the vote.
I've got the vote, yeah. I'm going to the vote. All those in favour, please. Thanks very much indeed.
I shall take that one. No, I'll start with that one. But I also think, just on the previous one, if I may, I think that was an excellent way of presenting to government that we have identified a cultural arts and heritage fund to deliver, and through the board we're going to invite applications to deliver that fund. Because as far as government are concerned, part of the people who have given us the money are concerned, as long as we deliver a cultural arts and heritage fund, they don't want to know, genuinely they don't want to know the very fine detail. That's up to us. So I think that's a fantastic way that that's just played out for somebody who's been married to this bloody thing for the last year. So, on that, the Local Economic Forum, it is a condition of the LUHC, Department for Levelling Up and Homes and Communities, that we have something called, locally we call it a Local Economic Forum, to them they call it an SPG, an LPG, a Local Partnership Group. There has to be a group made up of organisations from right across the district that bring projects forward, that endorse projects, and that government are happy that we are consulting at the level we are required to across the district for this fund. They encourage us to use a small amount, as you'll see, £5,000 a year, to help set up that forum and to administer that forum. And as it says there, for the first £5,000 for the first year, we'll to get the forum up and running, to get the membership identified, and I think that's possibly in the agenda later when we're talking about the membership, and to get the first meeting set up, then to get future years set up, to get the forum administered, and I know there's been one or two conversations about the money not adding up. That's because at the moment government have only asked for total clarity on what our year one allocation will be and what we will spend it on. Future years, obviously, is still to be determined because it has to be, because it's a 3-year programme and because we have to do the necessary consultation with the Local Economic Forum. So it's something we have to do, it's something they're happy for us to fund, and I hope everybody's in agreement that we use £5,000 a year to be able to facilitate that.
Thank you. Assuming that we're working in partnership with the business clubs, I'd be happy to propose this and get on with it. Thank you.
All those in favour, please show. Any against? That's unanimous. Thanks very much indeed.
Sorry, darling.
Rural growth strategy, baseline metrics and analysis. Is that you again, John?
What I would say to this one is, Chair, never have 5 weeks off work ill because you come back and your name's against stuff you've never heard of. No, in all seriousness, We sit alongside this, and as part of this board is also the Rural England Development Fund. If I've got that, Rural England Shared Prosperity Fund, which is £500,000 that we've got for 23 to 25. What we need to do is look at, I mean, we are short on data, we are short on analytics, we are short on information relating to our rural areas in order to prepare the necessary rural investment plan and in order to demonstrate what we would and why we would want to spend £500,000 on rural communities across the district. So as it says there, review the existing evidence base, rural set, etc., etc., etc. So it's a document that needs preparing to enable future funding decisions to be made through the Rural England Shared Prosperity Fund. And the only thing I would say, and it probably come up in other things, is if people remember the workshops last year, etc., government put a lot of store, because it's so predominantly revenue, a lot of store in feasibilities and plans to inform larger investment decisions going forward.
Yeah, the first thing that's drawn my attention as a rural council is transport. Obviously that falls under LCC. How does that work with us, the funding towards transport? I mean, there is a lack of regular bus service in the areas. I know it's only it's a drop in the ocean, but how's that going to work with transport, firstly?
I think to be perfectly honest, this plan is to look at exactly that and determine what transport is available, what isn't. I mean, I've been around long enough to remember Wheels to Work and those sorts of things. Should we bring in those forward again? And until we know that and have that evidence base, we don't want to go dipping into the £500,000 that we've been given to spend on rural communities until we've got that solid evidence base of where the transport shortages are, where the young people aren't able to access employment and learning opportunities, where the lack of business support is, all those sorts of things that is the key target for the larger pot of rural funding that we've got from next year.
Thank you, Chairman. I know and appreciate, and I know I've spoken with John about this before, about in terms of the work that we're doing in terms of the rural economic development strategy, and obviously our economic development strategy as a whole is we are short of data and information to back that up. I think obviously, you know, the data would be incredibly useful for not just us, but actually if we can make it accessible to others as well. If, you know, people are looking to set up rural businesses, to make it accessible so they know some of the challenges that we have, and to make it so actually our strategy is then based on a factual document, and I know this would aid us with that.
Anything that gives us the proof for going for future funding is a positive. So I would be happy to propose this. Thank you.
I have a proposer and a seconder. Are there any other comments? Yes, please, Ashley.
Yes, please. I think that, I don't know if it's possible in the first year, but certainly in the years beyond, we should look for a breadth and a change of the people who supply this information. I mean, we shouldn't go to the same consultant every time and ask for a rehash of the previous report.
So, and a seconder. Any further speakers? In that case, I go to the vote. Please, all those in favour? Against? Unanimous. Thank you very much indeed. Accessibility and wayfinding towns audit. 10 grand. Who's presenting this?
Chair. And again, as people know, I've not been around. My first looking at that is we probably don't need to just limit it to Grantham. It is a study that needs doing. Basically, a town study needs doing across our 4 towns. I know why it says Grantham. It's got Alex Ward against it. It's a requirement of the Future High Street Fund that it's done, and this would be good match funding for the Future High Street Fund and vice versa. But having worked with some town centre master planners last year who wanted to do some work with us and couldn't because the funding isn't available, I think that audit across all 4 towns, working with the town councils to make sure it's pinpointed in the right direction, again in terms of feasibility, in terms of identifying where larger sums of money can be spent in future years, that sort of audit is something that I'd want to see and hope people would welcome across all 4 towns in the district.
Can I play devil's advocate for a moment? Should this not be automatically being done by InvestSK?
Who are InvestSK? Yeah. Now, in terms of an economic development function, that is not, I mean, it's not, there is not officers within the small economic development team that would be doing that activity. In terms of the economic development function that we have, it's project officers managing the Future High Street Fund and the HAS, it's a tourism officer and it's a business support officer. So this would be extra support to those people to identify those activities.
The county council is doing something like this. If we're spending 10 and then 15 to 25 on establishing how navigable the town centres are for cyclists, pedestrians and motorists, as a cyclist, a pedestrian and a motorist, I have a good idea of how accessible some of the towns are, and I'd say on a Friday morning Stamford is not particularly accessible by motor car, and at other times there are troubles with going on bicycles across. I know that the county has done some work like this, certainly in the Deepings and maybe in the other areas. So how do we dovetail with what the county has done? But also, when we've spent the £25,000 finding out that, yes, what we call it, wayfinding could be improved, well, I mean, if we were given another £25,000, that would barely give us the infrastructure to create 10 yards of cycle path. So you kind of feel, what was the point? Unless there's some proper money in terms of the investment in infrastructure and actually making things better, a report to tell us that things are rubbish, it's, what use?
I know that Ashley is also part of the neighbourhood plan group. I don't come very often to the meeting, but we've done a lot of this work. We have done a big questionnaire not that long ago, and we're continually looking at this sort of thing in the neighbourhood plan group. So I know Stamford has a neighbourhood plan. I don't know about Grantham, and Bourne was going to have. I don't know if you've got a made one or a process, but it may well be something that you're. It may be something that that is already that local people have already got on the cards. Sort of
thing.
Thank you. So, are you okay with me speaking next, or you? Yeah. What this will do is give us the baseline information. So if there is other information out there in other towns, there isn't for Grantham, so I can confirm that there isn't for Grantham. So this would enable us to do that piece of work.
The speakers. Again, playing a bit of devil's advocate, what's the Grantham High Street Fund of several millions? Can that 25 grand not come out of that?
Yeah, and it's not within that project anyway, is it? This is a separate project entirely, John. Yeah.
Sorry, Chair, I'm confused now because I think Mr. Hines said that it has to be done for reasons of the Future High Street Fund, but Nicola McCoy-Brown has said that. Yeah, so the Future High Street Fund have said you've got to do it, but they haven't given us any money to do it, and we're bailing it out with this. I'm not particularly fond of this item.
If I may as well.
Sorry.
The Future High Street Fund is only for a few streets within Grantham. It isn't for all of Grantham. So this would enable us to cover a wider geographic area.
Thank you, Chairman. I think it's similar to the previous one in terms of the data and the intelligence that we can gain from this, and obviously working with our other local government partners, be it the county council or neighbourhood groups as well. It then gives us the ability to then bid for further funding, should it arise, in terms of how we do make our town centres and rural areas more accessible to people.
Helen.
I'll wait for the zoom in. Again, anything that gives us the proof and the data for any future funding that may come along, I think is a positive. Is that
it on that we look for the information that we've already got in other places as part of this exercise, because obviously Deeping have been doing some work on it, and our neighbour plan has been working on this for 5 years now, and that might have some information, probably out of date, but probably have some information, and we shouldn't confine it to Grantham. We should look across the thing.
On that note, I'd rather if rather than get somebody else to do it, I'd rather you ask the neighbourhood plan people first of all if what you needed and if they've got it, and then give them the money towards spending, rather than an outside consultancy that would take a long time to kind of get to know what they're doing before they do it and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, I mean it goes back to the programme management side of things. We're going to do an accessibility, or the proposal is to do an accessibility and wayfinding towns audit. If we work with the neighbourhood plans to deliver that, then there is £10,000. If the board are happy, there is £10,000 to do that. We can work with we can work with the neighbourhood plan teams to do that. If we want to bring somebody in over the top to support them more, as long as it's on that piece of work, fine.
It would be really good to bring somebody in to work with the neighbourhood plan teams to produce that piece of it, rather than somebody else do it, which may then fly in the face of what's already been done. It would be better to do it collaboratively. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, just from a practical point of view, as my mum's in a wheelchair in Grantham. Yeah, I agree. Let's do it locally, because find out what we really need, and with LCC, because there's lots of pavements are very difficult to negotiate in Grantham. And I think when I first read this, I felt uncomfortable. I thought it's just a play on words. It looks good, corporate looks good. But, yeah, if it does something practically to help the town Grantham, yeah, then I'm with you. Thank you, Mr Chairman.
In that case, no more speakers? No. In that case, I had a proposal and a seconder. Put that to the vote. All in favour, please. Against? One against. Cost of living. It's going up. Do we need an exercise to find out it's going up? No, perhaps not. The cost of living. And John, you're dealing with that again. I see your name on the list there.
It's looking that way, but I'm sure Councillor Mason will support me on this one. So I am and have for some time been part of the Officer Cost of Living Working Group here at the council. We've done some fantastic work in terms of setting up a website, in terms of providing advice and guidance and signposting and all sorts of things. Since the cost of living crisis first was made public and announced. This is an internal group of officers that come from all over the council, but we don't have the facility within that group to, if you like, have a coordination post or a coordination facility within that. It's all officers that have come together to support this. We want to, and you'll see there's a very small amount of money in year one, and then we want to try and take it out into year two, is actually to have a coordinator in post, not only to coordinate the internal group, but to give a more personable, forward-facing, public-facing role to the cost of living group, in terms of outreach work, in terms of supporting community groups, households, people identifying issues with cost of living, and actually just throw a real big effort at how we practically support from a council perspective through the cost of living crisis. At the moment, I say, through all the work we've done on the website and everything else, we are doing very well in signposting people, but actually, ultimately, what we feel we should be doing is that real life practical support and getting all the partners together, having more sessions, having more ability to provide physical in place support to people that we just can't do at the moment as officers in the group that we're in. So somebody coordinating the officer group, being the public face of SKDC's cost of living support, fits incredibly well with the priorities of SPF. Governments are very keen that local authorities are supporting the cost of living situation through their SPF, particularly in year one, going into year two. And I, speaking on behalf of all my colleagues in the cost of living working group, it would be fantastic to be able to move it on to the next step through an actual coordinator to help us take this forward.
Thank you. John gave a real detailed explanation there, really. The work of the cost of living working group has been fantastic, and I'm terribly proud of all of the team there. But what we are missing is something to pull it all together, to look at the different teams and the different departments and make sure that it is seamless working throughout, and be in the face of SKDC organising the cost of living community events. First one's on the 25th of February. I'll just give a little plug at the Jubilee Life Church at 10 a.m. to 1 a.m. It's fantastic. We're there to help the residents and to give information to the residents. So a cost of living coordinator would really be able to take it to the next level.
Yeah, I would support this item, but I did notice I've got some concerns. I notice in the comments it talks about outreach activities across the 4 towns. I would like some assurance that we're not really ignoring the villagers. We're not working on the assumption, are we, that everybody in the villages is rich. I mean, there are quite a lot of people struggling in the villages, particularly with, communications, transport and that. So I'd just like an assurance. Yeah, fully support it, but please don't forget the villagers.
Yeah, I could just come back on that, Councillor Wood. We are aiming it at the 4 towns at the moment. We're trialling it with Grantham to see how it works and whether it does meet what our residents need. And then we'll be taking that rurally. So, yeah, absolutely. If we can get the cost of living coordinator, of course.
Yeah, just off the back of what Councillor Wood has said, obviously we've got the link for cost of living help and information. I think it came through a member update, and it was really well received by the parish councils. So I'm all for keep it going, encourage it, because a lot of people don't know that the help's out there, and they're not particularly internet friendly. So I printed off hard copies, and I did get some feedback that it was very well received, because a lot of my parish councils have got parish magazines and they included it. So if we've got a coordinator, keep it going, keep it going.
Thanks. Obviously I welcome work to assist residents with the cost of living crisis. Don't be political. This particular post, I did have some kind of queries, and I was pleased to hear that Jubilee Life Church was mentioned. So clearly we need to work with external organisations. If I was playing devil's advocate, I would say, well, why don't we just give why don't we allocate the money to set up a similar post in places like the Citizens Advice Bureau and the people that are meeting that are already engaged in meeting people's queries on that stuff. We don't have to have everything with an SKDC badge on it. Having said that, I think I've understood from what people have said that there is a case for having an SKDC badge on this post, but I think we could think outside the box a bit more, and perhaps instead of having 1 full-time post, we could have 2 part-time posts. I don't understand the £5,000 between now and the end of April. Are we going out to we're going out to advertise this post, and we're going to recruit, and we're going to have the person in post and paid and that's going to shift this £5,000 before the end of April. I don't really know, but I think the main thing, if you're listening to me, is to say, why do we need 1 post which is £40,000 per year, which I guess is something like £30,000 plus on costs? Would it not make more sense and be more family friendly to the people who are in those posts to have 2 cost of living coordinators that are working together in tandem on the same job share, but perhaps one could be based in the north of the district and the other could be based at Bourne in the south of the district.
Thank you. You said a lot there. I want to make it clear that it is a fixed-term contract, so this is only going to continue for while we've got the funding there, if it's obviously it's agreed. In the Appendix A that you've got in front of you, it says that initial year one funding will allow an outreach of activities across the 4 towns and builds upon some of the initiatives that we've delivered. So, yes, we absolutely understand that we're not going to be able to recruit, within 7 weeks. If during the course of our recruitment, we do get people who wants the job share, then, to be family friendly, we do that in the course of our employment anyway when we're interviewing. We're very, very family friendly at SKDC. So, this person is to work with the third-party sectors to provide the referral to the third-party sectors. It very much needs to be an internal SKDC rather than somebody going working for the CAB, to be honest, because CAB can't look at our different teams and look at our different systems and connect the dots. If somebody doesn't qualify for help in the criteria, then the cost of living coordinator can have a third-party referral to some of the third-party organisations. That can possibly help. So it is quite far-reaching. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Climate change workshops. Rebecca, are you going to speak on this, or is somebody else going to speak? It's got your name against it. Yeah? Rebecca, welcome. I've never met you before. And do you want to open on this? Or somebody else?
Sure. Yeah, why not? Not a lot, to be fair, to add. Rebecca will, because she is a climate change expert, and she always tells me that I don't know what I'm talking about. But in this instance, this is something that came out from the consultation last year that's followed all the way through, is that small businesses linked to climate change and linked to cost of living as well, is how climate change and impacts in businesses and how businesses can build resilience by planning for those impacts. We'll run a pilot workshop. We'll be able to run it before the end of March, and then we'll run further workshops across all of the districts in future years. But this is to bring somebody in, an expert in climate change and the mitigation of within small businesses, and delivering those workshops to those businesses. That's what this is for.
Thank you. A workshop can mean lots of different things to lots of different people. Personally, I think that if you're going to get businesses to come along to a workshop, one might turn up thinking, what about my water use? Another about what about my energy use? Another about what about crop yield? And just giving them the basic kind of, this is climate change, the world's going to die unless you start turning your lights off. It's not a waste of time, but it's not a good use of our resources. Personally, I would prefer the word exhibition, so that if you could have events where you're bringing together people with a lot of the answers, like Anglian Water, Environment Agency, the Energy Saving, whoever does that for businesses, Carbon Trust maybe, don't know, and giving people an opportunity to hear from people who have done something well, and an opportunity for them to find more than one expert. Having just one expert at the front trying to answer all questions on climate change ain't going to work. So call it what you like. Call it a workshop if you like, for the sake of getting it through this meeting. But you don't want a workshop with a single flip chart and a bloke with a tie. You want something a little bit more elaborate, nuanced.
Thank you. I think that's a point well made. Any further speakers? I've got Callum first.
Likewise, I don't mind what we call. I mean, it could be a summit as well, Ashley, or whatever else we want to call it. But no, I'd happily go with it. I'll agree with you again and say exhibition. The only thing I want to say is, obviously, I'm aware, and I've obviously had a conversation around this, is that small local businesses were engaging with us about this. It's obviously a concern for them. It obviously links in quite well to previous ones in terms of businesses experience increased costs. So obviously, in terms of how they can actually make themselves more green, but also reduce costs as well as an organisation. But I think just for awareness, obviously, this is climate change is obviously one of the key strands and threads through the UK Shared Prosperity Fund. It is one of the government criteria that we do something relating to business and climate change. So I am supportive of this, and I do want to get the best value for money out of these workshops as well. And I think the point that Ashley made is really key, which is we've got to have all different areas of how you can support and fight climate change as a small business.
Thank you very much. I agree both with what Councillor Cook and what Councillor Baxter has said. The costings on the sheet states £5,000 for year one and then 15,000 year two, year three. So I'm hoping very much it's not going to be one guy with a flip chart at the top of the room. But I was just wondering whether you could just share some ideas, because that is a lot of money. You know, we are spending a lot of money. So what kind of ideas do you have for these workshops? So that we can be reassured it's not going to be just a little flip chart at the front. Thank you.
It might be an idea, as well as doing a summit or whatever, to actually go to the business groups that we have in the towns and go to them first. Yep.
Given the comments, which I think are welcome. Sorry, Rebecca. Yes, welcome.
Hi. Sorry. So just about what the workshops would be on, it's envisioned for year one that it'd be carbon literacy training. So businesses actually understand how to count their emissions and the practical ways where they can help reduce their emissions. Obviously, climate change is a very, very broad topic. My master's is in climate change, so I understand that. Future workshops could potentially be spanned out to different topics too.
Sustainable Green Business Grants.
Possibly in the absence of Serena, but again, this is a legacy ERDF activity. Sorry, European Structural Fund activity that has been delivered previously across the district by third parties that we would need to go out and procure. But yeah, they go into our businesses, deliver energy audits, and then provide specialist advice on energy efficiency within those properties. And potentially, previous European funds have done this, is to include a small grant to support that business to implement the findings of those audits.
I am supportive of this, actually, because I think if we can do anything to support small and medium businesses across the district, particularly in regarding energy efficiency improvements, obviously supporting them on how they can make cost-effective decisions regarding reducing emissions. I am supportive of it as it is. Obviously, we have got a couple of deferred items above. At the present time, I would be happy to propose it as it is, because I want to support businesses, but actually I think we potentially have the opportunity to increase the amount that we are allocating to this, because I think £10,000 is a small amount, but actually in terms of year 2 and 3, there are also small amounts in terms of how many businesses we could potentially reach, especially bearing in mind what we've just agreed in the previous one. So I think just to bear in mind that I think this is probably one where it could be increased actually to support further businesses.
Do I take it then that you are proposing that we defer it and consider it again in a couple of light of bids for the next couple of weeks?
I'm happy to propose it as it is. I'm just saying in 2 weeks' time, if we do defer other items or decide against to support other items, I would be supportive of increasing these amounts.
Take that, but can you put into the next meeting that view that it's there potentially as a thing for increasing, please?
Right now, we're mainly giving clearance for the first year, the first year funding, and so whether it's 30 and 60 or 90 and 180 in the following years, that's for a different day. That's fine. I would say be careful when you're delivering these, not to get something. I don't know if I need to declare an interest, but I used to deliver these for different organisations, and sometimes it becomes more about the template and the number bashing than it is about what the business actually needs. And so I wouldn't just go off to, won't say the name of the companies, but I wouldn't just go off to them and say deliver this for us, because having had to deliver these reports, they're not all they're cracked up to be. So mine were brilliant. Mine were absolutely brilliant. Other than we're strangulated by the template that was put in by the organisation. I think the bit about the encouraging the businesses to take up, then that is quite a good idea. And I don't know how much of it goes into capital, but if you have a plan that says, right, what the first thing you need to do is to replace all these old lights for LED lighting, then if you can say, we'll give you 20% towards the cost of doing the LED lighting, then that definitely is, they're more likely to do it if you offer them a carrot. If you just give them a report that says, that's what you ought to do, then they'll put it on the pile with everything else that they ought to do. There's also, obviously, some legislative requirements that they need to know about, like the SECR and the ESOS and so on, that probably it would be a wake-up call to them to say, did you realise you're supposed to be doing this anyway, and you could be fined if you don't. I don't know how you write that all into your spec, but yeah.
Thank you. I was going to say, talk to somebody who knows. Judy.
I'll be confident that we can deliver all that by the end of April.
That's why it's such a small. It's why it's such a small amount £10,000, because you basically might work in 10 minutes.
Oh, sorry.
Just got to say, yes, me might being on. Sorry. Yes, you're basically talking about 10 businesses. Roughly, I mean, some will have more, some will have less, but you're talking about probably working with 10 businesses. So working with them now, getting everything done by the end of March, getting it all evidenced by the end of April is achievable. Yes.
Have you identified those businesses then, or you've got?
Personally, no. I mean, I'll speak to Serena. I mean, she's leading on it. But she, to her, this is fantastic because we're getting a lot of businesses asking the questions. So we've got people we can now go back to and say there is now some funding available to support this type of activity. So yeah, we'll be up.
Can I have a proposer and a seconder, please, Adam? Proposer, seconder, and Callum. Any further speakers? In that case, I'll go to the vote. All those in favour, please. That seems to be unanimous. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you very much. Next item, Discover SK, website and digital marketing. John again, what a surprise. Well, it's Jade here, but John.
I don't mind. One consistent throughout the consultation has been the need to improve our Visitor Economy website and our Visitor Economy social media presence. It's something that is particularly focused upon
in the government guidance is how you are dealing with visitor economy. So yes, we would be able to get this done by the end of March, is to have a complete refresh of the existing Discover SK website, and that's what this money will do.
Any speakers? Yeah, proposed it and seconded. As I can't use any of this stuff, I don't do any social media. It means absolutely nothing to me. But we'll move on from that. We've got a proposer and a seconder. Any speakers? Yes, Ashley?
Are you going to shift it before the 28th of May? 28th of April?
All those in favour, please. Yeah.
Yeah.
Unanimous. Thank you very much indeed. Move on to the work-based skills and experience. It's got a name of John Hind here. I wonder if he's available. Oh, right. We've got a lever. Yeah.
Mike.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, she's got to go, hasn't she? So this one, building on the very successful Gleam initiative that was first run last year, is where district-wide manufacturing and engineering businesses provided vocational opportunities and student access into their workplaces. It's run under the Gleam network, supported by Grantham College, and I think it's fair to say that businesses of the district, and in particular the engineering and manufacturing businesses of Grantham, were an exemplar last year of how to engage and bring young people into engineering and manufacturing as a sector. I recall some councillors took part in the day last year in terms of accessing the businesses on the day. There were huge numbers went through it. I do know a number of those young people that went in there on the day have since gone on to commence apprenticeship training with the college post the Gleam day. So again, an existing activity that can be lined up and delivered in the time frame required that I'm sure we would want to see rolling into future years, and one thing that really has gone down particularly well and would be great to support in the future.
Before I go over to anyone else, under the rationale, the versions changes, it says at the bottom, the removed Gleam and Grantham College as partners from work-based skills. So, can you comment on that?
Well, I'm not sure what you
I'm sorry, it's on our from our page 9. Under item 9, the following elements have been changed since the document was presented to full council on the 26th. Next to the bottom, removed Gleam and Grantham College as partners from work-based skills to ensure that wider opportunities for vocational training can be investigated. Are you with me? No? Item 9, Annie. Page 9. Page 9.
Right, yeah. Agenda item 5.
Yeah, agenda item 5. You got it? So it implies that we're removing Gleam and Grantham College. Have you got it, Adam, yeah? Yeah.
I can only apologise having not been here and haven't seen that change. I can only assume, similar to other things previously, we've talked about it being a bit Grantham-centric, and I'm sure the idea of that is to probably engage Stamford College as well to roll out the programme. But in terms of a work-based skills experience programme, the programme is as it stands, and I can only assume it's about widening it out further. But
so just to question, obviously appreciating John wasn't here, obviously, yes, it needs to be about the whole district, and obviously I can appreciate that's why we might remove the title of Grantham College. But obviously Gleam is Greater Lincolnshire Engineering and Manufacturing Network, which covers the whole of the district. So why would we remove Gleam from it?
It's Lincolnshire-wide. I don't know what they would.
To confirm, we'll amend that to, because obviously we do want to keep Gleam included and amend so that it does cover other colleges. So I think that's an error that's been put into that tracker. So we'll remove it out.
Thank you. That was going to be one of my questions as to why is it just Grantham College and not Stamford College. And is this actually including schools across the district, high-level schools across the district? Can I just have that answered, because I may need to leave the room otherwise?
In terms of this particular initiative, the relationship with the schools is the college and the businesses working with the schools to encourage young people to access the facilities, the manufacturing and engineering facilities. It's not about putting young people in front of schools who would be delivering the learning, if that makes sense, Councillor Lyson.
Should I declare an interest? I'm a member of the Girls' Academy. So I'm not a governor, I'm a member of the Girls' Academy. Do I need to be excluded?
Personally, I don't believe that that is an interest where you need to withdraw, because it's not specifically mentioned here, and they've not been mentioned as a specific user. Do you want to take
I'm just thinking, when you say you're a member, Councillor Mason, is there any decision-making powers as part of that, or is it simply that you have got children attending the school? I'm not clear on what the interest would be.
Okay, so on Companies House I'm listed as the director of the academy, so I just scrutinise the governors.
I would say that if you're uncomfortable being in that position and also making a recommendation to the decision makers here, then of course, if for the avoidance of doubt, I would leave the chamber. If the amount of, I'm presuming the amount of money involved, it's £10,000 for year one, and I'm presuming that's across all schools and partners in the district. So I think the amounts of money we're talking about here are possibly low. So in terms of that one school specifically, I imagine it would be a low amount of money. But for the avoidance of doubt, if you wanted to leave, then that's your prerogative.
So I would declare then, so I'm a member of the St Gilbert's Academy Trust in Stamford, which is a primary school, and obviously I'm a member that deals with the governance in terms of the trustees and the governors. So, no, I know, and I don't know what the level of engagement is on this one. And just for further clarity, obviously, in terms of so we're saying in conjunction, we are, before I propose to defer this item, it is in conjunction with Grantham College and Gleam. We're not eroding that.
No. As I say, I'm getting to the bottom of what's going on here. No, it absolutely wouldn't be eroding Grantham College because, as I was saying, Grantham College and the Grantham Engineering and Manufacturing businesses were an absolute beacon of light as far as this programme is concerned. I do remember certain councillors questioning why it was so Grantham-centric at the time. That's because it was the businesses, and I think we committed at the time that there are other colleges that we need to talk to that may be linked into other businesses wider across the district that can get on board with this. But for me, Grantham College and Gleam working together was an absolute beauty for us, and something that we should be building on, not eroding or deleting from this plan.
Can I suggest that, with as James said, the volume of money involved, and how many schools are there in South West Stephen District Council, or whatever else, a lot, and the involvement that you have, I don't think that the meeting needs you to withdraw from the thing. That's a personal view.
Just going to say very quickly, because you're not considering this item yet, but obviously you will come on to town and parish councils later. Obviously, I think there's 4 of you in the room that are current town or parish councils, so consistent with my advice at that point with town and parish councils, because the amounts of money per council we're looking at are quite small, personally would say that there would be no interest there, but it is always members' prerogative. If they feel that they are conflicted, then they can leave the chamber. That would be the advice I'd give, if that makes sense in this case.
Yeah, John, just for clarity, and I apologise if you quickly explained it, but I know it's Grantham College and the engineering. Are they going into all the educational places to basically give a presentation of the goods and what have you for engineering? Because I definitely know that the sixth forms at the schools, there is a gap in the market for promoting engineering. It's like, do you want to go to university? Do you want to do a degree? But there is a gap in the market. So is that going to be covered by this?
Right. The short answer is the reason that the businesses have done this is because it is so very difficult for businesses to get into schools to promote the sector. So the best way that they found of doing it is to take it upon themselves to let the young people into the businesses to see and experience what it's like to work within an engineering and manufacturing business. And that is born out of, and I'll get in trouble, I know I will, but that is born out of how difficult it is to get businesses into schools to talk about certain sectors, engineering and manufacturing being one of those. So it's the young people going into the business, not the business going into the school.
So how are they going to get the young people into the businesses? How are they going to go about that?
I like that. It's promotion. It's promotion of the event. It's promotion of the days. It's promotion. I mean, if we go back to last year, I forget the numbers. Something like 700 young people took part in the day, going into businesses. Some school. So Grantham College work with the businesses to get the young people into the businesses to experience what it's like, and then ultimately the opportunity to go into learning within the college facility. But I think the key to this is there is, and historically have been, and this isn't all schools, and it's unfair of me to be so sweeping in the statement, it is difficult to get businesses to go in. It's difficult for businesses to get into schools to promote their sectors. So this is a way of reverse engineering that, if you pardon the pun, to get the young people into the businesses and see it in first hand.
Yeah, thank you. I think that is an area, I don't know if we can cover it at all with this funding. I'd like to explore that a little bit more, but I obviously don't want to hold this up because it's a good thing. But there's obviously a black spot there, and it's been highlighted, and I'd like to think that us as a district should be doing something about it. Thank you.
Are you proposing that we defer this for the next meeting?
I say it is a really good thing, but I think it has highlighted there is an issue, and I'm aware of that issue anyway. So yeah, it's just food for thought, but I don't want to delay things because it has to be obviously by a certain time frame. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Sorry, I'm still not clear whether this is exclusively manufacturing or whether we are saying it's going to be any employer in any sector, as well as the spreading it out geographically to the whole, to include Stanford College and other FE providers, other sixth forms.
At the moment, it is engineering and manufacturing because it's part of that GLEAM engineering and manufacturing network, so it is specific to those sectors.
Thank you, Chair. I might get emotional during this bit because I'm fully behind this for a very personal reason, in that my middle daughter did work experience from school with a agricultural machinery firm in Deeping, and they were brilliant. They welcomed her in. They had to put some soap in the women's loos because there weren't many women on the shop floor using the loos. But from that, when she did her GCSEs, before she got her results, they phoned her up and said, "We're looking at apprenticeships. Would you be interested?" And she's now she's in a fourth year of an apprenticeship, and she's looking on to what to do next. And it's proper old-fashioned metal bashing engineering, and there's not many girls in that. And her story is like an example for everyone. So fantastic. I'm all on board. However, I don't understand how you're going to spend £10,000 between now and the end of April. Are you saying that the placements have got to take place before the end of April? Because that just ain't going to happen.
These won't be the placements, these will be the events for where the young people go into the businesses, so as to help to deliver and facilitate the events that will take place where the young people go into the businesses.
So the business kind of has an open day and come in and look at the way we're welding and metal bashing and doing vocational things, and then you get a parade of teenagers walking through and saying, "Oh wow, that's really opened my eyes to industry." And you can coordinate that with sufficient businesses. So what are you spending the money on?
Well, in terms of the sufficient businesses, it's an existing network. So as I say, it was delivered last year. The network, as I say, it's an ongoing existing network, and the cost to deliver it is to support the businesses to put the events on, to bring in certain machinery if they need to just make it the best possible experience for those young people when they're in there. So it's seed funding. It's just pump priming. So when that young person gets to that business, they are getting the best possible experience of that sector, and it's to support the businesses for that.
I'll propose.
Seconder, please. Thank you very much, Annie. All those in favour, please show. Thank you very much indeed.
I know.
Yeah.
Next time I'm sitting that side so I can wipe the mic forward.
Right. It is the next turn. Yeah. Business grants, and Paul Green isn't here, so I'm assuming it's John again, yeah. Did you know you're going to have such a busy afternoon?
Yes, that wasn't even coming, no. So in terms of the business grants, a term oft used for the last few years for various things, but in terms of this, again linked to supporting businesses through cost of living, through various other things, it is not necessarily within their plans at the moment to take representation and membership of the Chamber of Commerce and the Federation of Small Businesses and other business support organisations. What we'd like to do with this fund, and again working with businesses that we're already working with, is support these businesses through funding their membership of these organisations, because that will allow them to access a lot more free support. Well, would be free because this is funding it to provide funding to support these businesses in legal advice, HR advice, funding advice, all those kind of things that the FSB and the Chamber of Commerce provide through their membership schemes will be front funding that membership for these businesses, if that makes sense. Sorry, I was distracted. I had a lot of messages going on and I do apologise, a bit distracted.
Thank you, Chairman. So this will be for businesses that aren't... Yes, John. Yes, please. Businesses that aren't already a member of those. It's completely... Well, we're not paying the membership of current members, are we?
No, so it's working with those businesses that we've identified need the support, and invariably those tend to be the businesses that can't afford the memberships at the moment.
Will you be going to the 4 business groups that are around the district? Yeah, so that's good. Positive, thank you.
Similar question, except that maybe a bit further away. We've got the Deepens Business Club and the Stamford Business Club, whatever that's called, and Grantham and so on. If we're giving free membership to the FSB and the Lincolnshire Chamber of Commerce, is there also a possibility to give free membership or discounted membership to the local cluster, the local group?
To the local business clubs themselves? Yes, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, as I say, it says there, Chamber of Commerce, FSB, or the sporting organisations. So where we can identify those organisations that currently charge a fee which is prohibitive for businesses to get the support they need, then that can be delivered through that programme, which would include the current business or the existing business groups that we have across the district. Is that what you were asking? Sorry.
My only question would be around the word prohibitive, because I think to join the FSP as a small organisation, it's only about £100 anyway. So that it's a whether you choose to join it or not, it's not prohibitive. It's
Any further speakers? Can I have a proposer, please? Thank you very much. Second, Callum. All those in favour, please. That seems to be unanimous. Get SK moving. Keeping you here till 4 o'clock without a break seemed to get most people moving very quickly. But get SKP. Karen's not here. Who's taking this? Nicola's taking this. Thank you.
Thank you. So this one is about having health events in all 4 of our market towns. Members may well recall that we had the Welcome Back Fund and did a similar initiative under the Welcome Back Fund. So what we'll have is a team of experts on hand that will do things like blood pressure checks, health checks, nutrition advice. There'll be equipment that people will be able to trial as well. And obviously what we want to do is link then to Leisure SK, and it will be a pathway development, so you can trial something and then maybe use one of our centres. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd just like to make sure that it is really well advertised, because things like this that have gone on in the past perhaps hasn't got to the people that needed to know and could have benefited more from it. So I'd just like to make sure that it gets really well advertised. Thank you.
Thanks. Without rehearsing all the things that I said at full council about coming to the Deepings and trying to educate us about the need to exercise, given what's happened to the leisure centre, what are these health events going to look like? Are they we turn up in the marketplace with a gazebo and take everyone's blood pressure, or is it more complicated than that? Have we got an exercise bike? What is it going to look like? I pity the person that has to stand in the gazebo in Deeping Town Centre. However, could you not do it different? Could you not do in the same way as we've just talked about business clubs? Could you not give a discount to either a sports organisation or a gym or a sporting club, or even Weight Watchers? Other weight loss programmes are available. That would say, I mean, no, you're laughing at it, but if we're going to spend £2,500 bringing a gazebo to the Deepings, then I would say that if you found 100 people that could be subsidised for 6 months on a weight loss programme, then that's probably better bang for your buck.
Yeah, I do. I'm really suspicious of these things when we. Yeah, I agree with that, Ashley. Of course, that you'd need. You kind of. We've got to admit that bringing one of these gazebos to the centre of Deeping at the moment is just. It's rubbing salt into the wound, which is a very open wound. I wouldn't do it. I think we've got to think of a different way to approach people. You see, Leisure SK doesn't have a foothold in the Deepings anymore. Like it or not, the market that we started to have in the marketplace on a Saturday, we now haven't got. I've been totally unsuccessful in my bid to try and get something up and running on a Saturday in the Deepings on a monthly basis, as the leader will know. We've not got a leisure centre anymore. £2,500 isn't going to cut it. We might as well call a spade a spade. In terms of leisure, and in terms of delivering that, we haven't got a proper market. We've just got a Wednesday market, which doesn't, I suspect, reach an awful, a great cross-section of the population, and we don't have a leisure centre in which to deliver it, unlike the other 3 towns that do. So we can't deal with Deeping in the same way that we've dealt with everybody else, because we don't have that. We've given up that ability, unfortunately. So we've got to think of another way of doing it. This isn't going to work in Deeping.
Thank you very much. I'm not 100% a big fan of this, to be perfectly honest with you. we're offering blood pressure checks and exercise bites and things like that. In fact, we're actually doing that with the cost of living event on the 25th of February. Just another chance to plug the event. Please come along. Please spread the word. So we've got NHS partners come along, blood pressure checks, advice on weight. We've got a chef coming along to give advice on eating healthily and on a budget as well. And we've got an exercise bike and we've got a competition, somebody who can travel the furthest in 2 minutes and, you know, things like that. So I think with us doing it in the 4 towns and going out rurally, then maybe that could cover what we're trying to possibly achieve here, maybe.
Yeah, likewise, I'm not a massive fan of this, and I know I spoke to Nicola earlier about this and my concerns about it, and I won't be supporting it today. I think actually we could use that money in a different way for health and well-being or health and fitness outcomes. Obviously, Annie's already just mentioned a few examples. It's another one of those areas where actually, you know what, if in 2 weeks' time, I think we need to go away and have a think about what we could do in terms of health and fitness. So I'd propose that we defer it. And if in 2 weeks' time we decide actually that there isn't anything that is critical for this month, then actually I would propose that we put that £10,000 into the Town and Parish Community Fund and actually let locals bid on that pocket of money. So I'd propose that we defer it at this occasion.
Yeah, I'm not sure if members are aware that Lincolnshire County Council run something called the One U Lincolnshire project, which deals with these very issues about activity and weight loss and stopping smoking and alcohol issues. And so that's a considerable amount of expenditure at the county council. So just wondering that it may be crossing into work that the county council's already doing. I'd be happy to send the website address over to all members so they could see what the county council do. Thanks.
Can I ask, if we're saying that people can fill in the pro forma for the next time round in 2 weeks' time, does that account apply to sports clubs and that kind of group? If a sports club from any of the towns were to come forward and say, we're planning to run a summer scheme or an Easter scheme, get the money into our bank account by April the 28th, and oh no, it's going to be March the 30th. Get the money into our bank account by March the 31st, and we will make sure that there's a proper thing up and running by 28th of April. That would be, we would listen to that.
I think the answer is yes.
Yeah. Well, I'd rather do that than spend this money on this idea.
Yeah, just to confirm, the activity needs to be delivered by the 28th of April and invoiced by the 28th of April. It needs to be committed by the 31st of March.
When's Easter?
Yeah, so Easter's fine, yeah, but it couldn't be a summer. It couldn't be a summer event. Okay. It could be an Easter event. Okay. Yeah.
So just on that point, Mr. Chairman, actually just going on from Councillor Baxter's point, you know, we could actually approach. I don't want to be sport specific now, but you know, we could approach, for example, all the football clubs and all the tennis clubs across all the 4 towns and say to them, you know what, why don't you offer, I don't know, a few free sessions over Easter to a load of kids and actually get more bang for your buck out of doing it that way?
I'm aware that the cricket club I've been involved with over the years have done that over Easter as an Easter school, and Bourne Council have financed some of it sometimes.
Yeah, just with it being Easter, I just want to highlight something. There's a real problem at the moment with the churches in our area, really lack of funding, and some of the really good communities are having like plays, etc. within the church. So I'd really like to, if we're able to tailor it, and you know, health and well-being, because churches are well-being places as well, aren't they? And they are struggling. So I'd really like, if possible, to get something that way. I don't know.
Chair, I wholeheartedly agree with Councillor Trotter, except that we've also got that fund we were talking about earlier on, the £10,000 mural fund, which I'm sure that churches across the district would have great ideas for.
I think there's a general consensus here that we should propose we defer. Do you want to speak?
Thank you, Chairman. And if I get the wording right, perhaps Councillor Baxter will second. So I propose that we defer this funding, but in the next 2 weeks we approach all the sporting clubs across the district to do a free activity sessions over Easter for kids in the district, or something for all the towns and the rural areas.
That's a proposal. Have I got a seconder? Thank you very much indeed. Any speakers? No? In that case, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour, please. That's unanimous. Thank you very much indeed.
It's on, so you can speak now.
I am doing, yeah.
It wasn't on.
All right. We now go back to the Town and Parish Community Fund that we deferred a little while ago, and it's to include, whilst referring to the Year 1 tracker attached to the previous item, an update on Year 1 funding allocation eligible projects and groups, agreement of Year 1 eligible projects and group criteria, and agreement of the Year 1 selection process. And presumably you're helping us on that?
I will.
Yep. Just Annie, sorry.
Before we get into it, Chair, I just want to propose that we've got an SK Community Fund. So to call this a community fund, even if you put town and parish before it, it's getting confusing. So I think we do need to have a different name for this. Well, somebody did suggest Neighbourhoods Fund. I don't know, just put that out there.
Mr. Chairman, couldn't it just be like the... Well, I've not just, I've put my hand up now, haven't I? I'm not going to say I'm going to give a good name. No, it just needs to be really simple. Like, you know, I know residents won't understand UK SPF, but it needs to be like the, I don't know, the district, the district neighbourhood fund, or.
Chair, I think we need to know what it is first before we give it a name.
Thank you. So, if you're in agreement, what I was going to do was distribute a suggested template document that we would issue then to groups to complete. Now, at the moment, it is called the Town and Parish Community Fund, but clearly it can be renamed. And I was going to propose, whether you're in agreement or not, that there's a bit of a 5-minute break just while people digest the information. May well be able to make a decision today, which would be really great, because the sooner we get this approved, then we can go out to communities and get bids coming back.
5 minutes break while you digest the pass around now. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Mike.
Right, so we...
Chairman, so look, I think I mentioned this at the beginning of the meeting. Now, I'm not going to come up with some whizzy name for this form, but I think for me it needs to be, this needs to be the bidding form for any part of funding out of UK SPF. So it is actually when people, community groups, charities, whatever else want to know how to get and access funding for this, they can go onto our website and they can download this form and then they can submit it to us, and there's details on there. So it needs to be as easy as possible. We don't want to have different forms for different pots of money, whether it's arts or council or arts and culture. It needs to just be one form. I think we also, and I know on eligibility and criteria, so obviously we've put down the 2 options. I don't know if there's a potential of having more options in terms of what it is, potentially around what some people would like to bid into, because there will be some, obviously if we're saying this is for everything, it could be arts and culture, sports, so I think we just need to have options. I think the point that Councillor Trott-Value made on point 6 around is it a parish, town, group, community group, I'd just make it really simple and just have an open box where it says please write if this is on behalf of or on behalf of, and then just let them fill it in, because otherwise we'll have a whole page of different options from PCCs to everything else. So likewise on page 5, please select which category your project falls under. Actually, it could almost have the priorities of what the UK SPF is about, whether it's business, economy, sport, culture, and just so people can tick more than one as well, because some will cross over. This form is not designed to make it difficult, it's to make it really easy for whoever is bidding. Likewise, you know, it doesn't have to be a group, it could be an individual councillor bidding for this funding as well. I'm supportive. I just think some of it needs just amending, and we could probably just circulate it amongst the group and sign it off amongst us by email to make it as quick as possible. And then every bid that we then have from any member of the public. So obviously I'm aware that today, obviously we have a number from obviously Councillor Cleaver, I know Councillor Whittington, Councillor Moran. You know, everybody needs to fill this form in. So that is the process, and then we get a copy of this form completed at the next meeting, and then we basically mark it on this as to whether or not it's eligible for funding or not. And I think the officers need to do an evaluation in terms of what level of funding we could potentially provide to this as well.
Why don't we just call it the Sethka Stephen General Community Fund? Or just General Fund then? SK General Fund. Funding. Well, then that's just what we call it then, and that's it. Yeah. Yeah. Prosperity Fund.
In terms of the practicalities of it, we've said that we appear to be saying that over the next 3 years we're going to spend just shy of £1 million on this. The minimum project is 500 quid. That's potentially 2,000 applications at £500 a go. There doesn't appear to... Have we abandoned the thing that's on that page 11 about so much for a parish and so much for a town? Is that out the window now? We've put a minimum of £500, so woe betide you if you get a bench for £499. You have to get something else along with it. However, can I put in a bid for £1.5 million for a leisure centre in the Deepings? Would that be eligible?
You can put the bridge in, it won't be accepted because it's a capital value and it's not allowed by the scheme. So,
when does a capital thing? I'm never going to move away from it. When does a capital project become a capital project? Because you've got building improvements, which I always thought improvements to buildings were capital. I've spoken to Alison in the break, and I have a bit of an understanding that if it's short of, say, £10,000, it's likely to be revenue rather than capital. But I don't know how this relates to our £600,000 capital available. If a group like Gravity Fields or the Literary Festival or the Restore Deepens Leisure Centre group or whatever want to put in a bigger bid, bigger than the scales that were mentioned in the original page 11 bid, where do they stand?
I'll come to Alison in a minute, if I might. But I think it's like planning. And a builder can put a planning application for really where they want. Whether it's acceptable at the end of the day is a different story altogether. So if they want to build a 3-storey house in my back garden, I can put it in any time I want, and they can throw it out any time they want. And the same with this thing. I think people must consider it, put in what bids they think are appropriate to the rules and appropriate to what we've got here, bearing in mind the difference between capital and revenue, and building. Repairs and maintenance have always been considered revenue matters, and new build is pretty well a capital matter. And I'm sure if Richard was here, he would confirm that, and Alison's going to do that anyway. So I think people can put in for what they want, bearing in mind the rules, the restrictions that we've got, and whether it's likely to be successful, because if you put in a bid for it's not going to be acceptable, then it'll not work. Now, I'll come to Alison.
You can't say people shouldn't put it in if it's not likely to be successful, because how would you know until you put the bid in? There is no upper limit on this, so if I put in a bid for £50,000, if I'm a community group that doesn't know any better, is there an upper limit of what we're expecting people to bid for?
With the greatest disrespect, people will know what is sensible and what is not sensible, and what is practical and what is impractical. And so people should bear that in mind when they're putting any bid in that they wish. No, I'm sorry, but that's top and bottom of it. There is no upper limit as far as the rules are. But clearly there's an upper limit because the government has set us an upper limit of what we've got to spend. And we've got to spend it on different things. And we've already set a sort of thing for this year of how much a parish could go for and how much a town could go for. That's a sort of guide in the first instance. But people can apply for what they feel is appropriate, and that will be considered by this body going forward of whether it's acceptable.
Okay, so for the benefit of the tape, Chair, there is no upper limit on the application that can be put in.
Seen one, so I will ask for that confirmation, but I've not seen one. Alison, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I mean, we want the fund to. It's got to reach the community as a whole, so it would be my recommendation that you do place a limit on there, because otherwise you could allocate to a minimal number of projects, which then excludes perhaps wider reaching projects for the community. Just going back to your capital revenue definition, generally anything that's got a value of 10,000 and a purchase of £10,000 or more, we would generally consider as capital. But you also have to consider whether it's enhancing the life of the actual asset, the building you're potentially replacing an asset in. So it is generally a little bit more complicated. But obviously, if any members have got any queries, I'd be happy for them to email them through to myself, and then we can review it and define whether it's capital or revenue expenditure.
I was just wondering, as a question for Alison, for other districts that have put anything like this together, do they have, or what sort of limits do they have on their applications?
Yeah, I mean, certainly through conversations with the districts that I was having at the back end of last year, we're the only people that are putting a fund aside specifically for town and parish councils. Most others are looking at third-party delivery for all of their funds. So, you know, I know there's agenda items about year 2 and future other things, but as of back end of last year, we were the only people that were ring-fencing money specifically for towns and parishes to be able to deliver through the SPF.
Thank you. I again refer the board to the comments made in my submission on this particular fund. I would also point out there's no such date as the 31st of April on page 2. And sorry about that, but it had to be said. And you know, there is a question here about matching funding. There is a question about what is the and a judgment has to be made about a town or a parish council putting in a submission and saying if they're going to match funds from their own reserves or from increasing their precepts depending upon the size of the project, the ambition of the project. And I think we need some criteria about that, frankly, because of the amount of money we're talking about. We're talking about, and I know we're not talking about the full 3 years today, but in the plan it adds up to £1 million. That's a large proportion of this. And actually, I'm surprised. I'm taken by surprise here because I wasn't expecting it to be limited to building improvements and green space and outdoor improvements. That's quite a narrow band of activity for 1 million out of, at the moment, only 2.2 that's in the spreadsheet. And again, only going to town and parish councils who, again, have unlimited powers to increase their precept. So I really do think we need to tighten down the criteria on this quite considerably on what can be spent by town and parish councils and what matching funding we'll be looking for.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chairman. In terms of the sort of debate around whether there should be a maximum amount of a bid, presumably that would depend upon the size of the pot of funding that you're bidding against, because for some of these pots are a fairly small amount. So if you're bidding against a fairly small pot, it may be that £10,000 is a big figure. But against the criteria of some of the other funds, which was considerably bigger, £10,000 might be a small or even a medium-sized bid. So I think that there is a danger about putting in a maximum bid amount because the value of all the pots are different, unless you say, well, it can't be any more than X percentage of the total amount of that pot. So say it can't be any more than 20% whatever percentage you take, then you relate the maximum amount on a percentage basis to the value of that pot, if that makes sense, if I'm making myself clear on that.
Sorry, I just wanted to add that if you do want to match fund from a parish precept, you will just need to bear in mind the timescales, because obviously you've already set your precept for 23-24, so that could only be considered for 24-25 funding.
I think, though, the way I was trying to do it was to try and make a form as easy as possible for anybody to bid and gain funding from this pot of money, because ultimately it's all our money as taxpayers. You know, we're paying for this, nobody else. And I think the point that Richard's raising, I can understand where he's coming from. That's the reason why on part of it, obviously I've said, you know, in terms of the category the project falls under, that's why I'm saying we should have more options, so more people can choose whether it is arts or sports or leisure, you know, so we actually give that whole list of things. The risk of, you know, and I'm sort of moving it, you know, I think there is obviously the Town and Parish Community Fund, but when we get a bid into the Prosperity Fund, I think it's then for, you know, let's say officers to do the background work on that and analyse it and prepare a report for us to then consider as a board whether or not we should be, similar to a planning application as you were advocating, obviously it's going to go through some checks and then it will come to us for a decision. Because actually there might be a proposal, excuse me, the stage you were talking about, Richard, you know, that you would say, well actually, no, it won't come out the Town and Parish Community Fund money, it could actually come out of the Cultural Arts Fund. And we would then determine that. And I think there is a, you know, obviously with the Community Fund we do ask for match funding. And I suppose it's, if we receive an application from a town or parish council or parish meeting, would we set the same criteria as what we do with the community fund? Because the easier thing to do would be to say we'll have the same criteria for those on this. But, you know, if it really is, I mean, ultimately it's going to be on the success of the bid in terms of how much we feel, because ultimately it'll be us that make the decision in terms of what allocation of funding we put towards it and what pot of money it comes from. But I will say, we do need a really easy and simple form that encourages people to want to bid for funding.
Right, just coming back on what you've said, don't forget, this fund was to reach as many people as possible. So if people come forward with something that's only going to perhaps reach 10 people, then possibly we might not look at it as compared to something that's going to reach 1,000 people.
Yeah, I just want to go back to the Historic Ward grant. I know when I was assisting with the various recipients of the Ward grant, they definitely needed help if they've, you know, if there's too much to go through on there. It just puts people off, and we don't want to be putting people off. And I'm sure, as I say, as long as we get the more, keep it simple, and then we can go into it. I just think it puts people off, especially the smaller groups and the less corporate, what I call groups. So, yeah, we've got to keep it a bit simple, certainly as a starting point. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to confirm that once we've got an agreed design of the form, we can arrange for IT to actually design a simple online form for groups to fill in, which can be emailed directly through to the central email box. It's something very similar that John and I did when we were delivering the business grants to local businesses, and it worked very successfully.
Thank you, Chairman, for allowing me to come back. In regards to this funding, I think we've also got to be careful that not all parishes are the same. In regards to town and parish parish meetings, I represent a number of parishes that have just 5 parish councillors, and they have very small precepts, probably £2,500–3,500. Now, if they were to put up the precept to fund something large to try and get that community together, because we've got to remember that rural communities can sometimes be one of the areas where there's a lot of health issues, a lot of community issues, a lot of areas where people don't have friends to come round and help them. So, you know, I think if we're not careful, we're going to make things too complicated, and we have this money and we want to spend it. And the best way to do that is to incorporate our town, parish and parish meetings. So I would just like everyone to bear all that in mind, that we have this money. There are a lot of very useful and good causes out there that I think would do a lot of good, particularly to the health and well-being of our rural communities. Thank you, Chairman.
I want to clarify a couple of things, really. I agree that this needs to be as simple as it possibly can be. Obviously, and that sounds like a good idea, that you can do it on a portal and just send it all back. But to have one form for this and also for the cultural thing that we were discussing earlier, is there a minimum of that on that, though, of £500? Are we expecting people, you know, when we're looking for projects that local groups can deliver by the end of April, are we expecting them to come in at over £500? Because I didn't have that in my mind when we were talking about that. So if we were going to produce something which said £500, and it couldn't be used for that as well, unless we were going to make that as a benchmark for the cultural fund as well. That's one thing. And also, it doesn't, in terms of the bigger grants, it doesn't put a top level on it, you know. And I don't know whether that's very wise, because that is open to interpretation, and then you're going to raise people's expectations that they can actually, you know, apply for a lot of money when actually they're not going to get it if they do so. So I think you've got to be, if you're going to make it simple, then you've got to tell people what it's for and how much they can get. Because if they want to apply for, I don't know, you know, a new extension to their village hall, they're clearly not going to get it. But they don't know that by looking at this form.
I should come to you in a moment, actually. I'm 5:15. I'm suggested that we formally look for an extension for another half hour. If that is appropriate. Do I have a seconded proposed? Anybody violent against that? Well, thank you. Then we propose for another half hour, and half an hour we should be complete by then. It's Richard and then Ashley, is it? Yeah. Richard and then Ashley.
Thank you. Pardon me, got me coughing now. Just to amplify on what Kellum said, you know, I do have this concern that the town and parish councils are going to look to use this money to spend on their existing assets and prioritise those, rather than looking outward on new projects. So, for example, in my ward, I would love to get a community group together to plant some trees, put external power into a green space so that activities can be done that require mains power, for example, all that sort of stuff. And my concern is that there may be a conflict of interest where members of this council, who are also town and parish councillors, will want to spend the money on refurbishing the loos, which they could easily afford to do out of the reserves they've got in their town council. And I just want us to make sure that there is a way of there being an open process and some criteria whereby we are looking to do new things which that haven't been done before, rather than using this money to do actually what is effectively routine maintenance or enhancement maintenance on existing assets.
Thank you. I only got this form about 15 minutes ago. If I'd had it longer, I probably would have more. Yeah, it's typical. I agree with what has been said about question 11 about the category, because there are hundreds of things that we could spend money on, or people could bring forward, which would be for our shared prosperity. Festival of tennis, literary festival, gravity fields, all kinds of stuff that doesn't fit into building improvements or green space or outdoor improvements. So that list needs to be a lot longer with an other at the end. I wanted to ask, originally it was going to be so much per parish. if Deep and St James comes forward with 200 brilliant ideas and Grantham came along with nil, is that acceptable to us, or are we limiting per area? Another question that needs to be in here is about how many people the group represents, because as was said at full council, an application by Deep and St James Parish Council, which I think is the largest parish council in the district, would be on behalf of around 6,000 people. An application on behalf of Barham and Stowe Parish Meeting would be on behalf of considerably fewer. And if you got an application from the people of Barham to say we want to repaint the railings outside the church or something, you've got some kind of gates outside the church? Okay. I'll press on despite the interruptions. If we wanted to paint the gates or the railings outside, if we wanted to put railings up outside Barham Church, then that might cost so much and would be of public benefit. Then who is it to judge how far that benefit reaches? Is it all the kind of church tourism community, or is it just the people that attend the church, or is it just the people of Barham? But I think we should have a question in here about kind of what's for reach of the community group, or the parish council, or the town council. So more gaps under number 11. Insert a question 6A, which is how many people are likely to benefit, and how many can we have from an individual area.
If I might answer two questions. First of all, the idea of a maximum doesn't seem right to me, because it invites people to look for the maximum. So if you've got, and so on, and if somebody's got something at £499, I think has been said, you'd find a way to make it £500 by painting it or something. But whatever, I think the minimum is fair, and I don't think we need a maximum, because let people put what they want. And it follows on to answer to you, as I see it, purely as a person rather than as trying to represent anybody here. It's people. If you want 12 items put in from Market Deeping, or from anywhere else for that matter, or from Barham, or from anywhere, that's fine. The judgment at the end of the day will be by this board, who will make that judgment. And clearly, if they've got 12 from Barham and none from Market Deeping, or the other way around, you'll say, well, we've already given Barham all this, this, and this, and this. We're not going to give them everything of the thing. We must share it out reasonably well amongst the whole community, because it says it's got to represent the whole community. So that is a judgment at the end of the day for this meeting. You're part of it. Everybody else is part of it. And they will decide which are acceptable by any of the criteria we've got, and which are not acceptable by those same criteria. And they will do their best to spread it out as best and spend that money as wisely as we feel is appropriate. And I think it's quite a simple process. Changes to the form, I think we're noting those as we go along. I wouldn't like to think it would be a long time before we get a definitive form having changed, because otherwise we've got 2 weeks and it's going to be 2 weeks before we decide on which form to fill in. And that seems to me peculiar. Make it as accessible to as many people as possible, as quickly as possible, and then we've got to, if it takes all day one day, we've got to then look at all the options available, then we take all day and look at the options available. It's important. And if it takes a day, it takes a day. And that's that. Who else wanted to speak? Somebody? Sorry. Callum was next, sorry.
Thank you, Chairman. So just moving on from where you are then, to try and get us into a proposal. So I'll go through a few things then. So in terms of the form, we call it the South Kesteven Prosperity Fund. I'll agree with you about removing the maximum, but actually I would propose scrapping the minimum, because actually if a small parish or community group want £100, for instance, and that would do a huge difference, then actually we should support that. I know there's going to be more administrative work on that, but there are some really fantastic small groups that literally £100 would make such a difference. So I'd scrap the minimum. It's already been mentioned. Ultimately, it is us that are determining this. I think we need, as we've already said, more categories on the form in terms of what benefits it will add to. So you might have one project that is for culture and sport, and you can tick all the boxes that you think it applies to, so then we can work out where the money is coming from. And then I think the point that Ashley's just made in terms of another question, which is the one which would be, what will be the wider community benefit? That needs to be on the form.
You can hear me without the mic, can't you? Mark. Oh, right. All the public, sorry, can't hear me. Right now. So we've got a proposal and a second. I don't think there's any more speakers. Can I? Sorry, another speaker, Annie. Yes, sorry.
Thank you, thank you. It's just a quick one. We made the comment about making it easy for groups and people to apply to. We're going to do it online, but please don't forget that not everybody uses online, and we need to make sure that it's clearly communicated that there is alternative ways to apply and no barriers are put up. Thank you.
Here. I don't do online. Rosemary, quickly, if you could, please.
Can I just ask when the deadline, closing date for this is to get it in for this financial year?
That was the date we arranged for the next meeting, and it would be 24 hours, one assumes, before the date to the next meeting, which I think is on the agenda. Oh, it's not on the work programme, it'll come under that. So.
Just quickly, as we've got an all-councillor briefing tomorrow, also heads up to the councillors that they can assist as well.
Sorry, Chairman. I think the plan will be is once we've got the final form, it's emailed out to every councillor, and they can then circulate it to every group possible that they can.
Are we ready to vote on this?
Yes.
With the amendments that have been put by Ashley and by Callum, we're looking to approve this form and get it back out as quickly as possible. All those in favour, please show. That would appear to be unanimous. Yep.
Yeah, get rid of the 31st.
Yeah. Yep. I can vote. Agreement of the Year 2 project selection process. We're going to have a verbal report from Nicola.
So, effectively, what I'm suggesting is that clearly we need to get over the year 1 bit. For year 2, we'd like to go forward to the local economic forum. Yeah, that's what it's called. I'm getting confused by the names now. They will then have a look at some of the projects, and then we'll bring back to this board suggestions from that LEF for consideration here.
And presumably suggestions from all around the district as well?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Is everybody happy with that? Yeah. Proposed? Yes. Seconded? Oh, John?
Just on that, in case people aren't aware, there's a process of consultation across all 4. That's obviously the member consultation, but there's also going to be community consultation events going on next week or the week after, if I remember rightly, for the public to come forward, because, again, part of the government criteria is that we've consulted at all levels, so that will form part of the action plan for the next couple of weeks.
Broadly? It seems to be yes. All those in favour, please. Yes. Anybody against? No, that's unanimous. Thank you very much indeed. The work programme, page 17. Local economic foreman, approved terms of reference for LEF and approved recruitment strategy for the LEF. Are we trying to set that now, or are we setting agenda for another meeting? Yeah, meeting 2, yeah. Oh, yes, sorry, meeting 2. So we've got that on the agenda for the next meeting. When would that take place? When is it practical that we can get reasonably opportunity for everybody to have a go and put in their options, that we can put them together and put them forward for...
Thank you, Chairman. I think obviously we need to get the form, and then we need to give 2 weeks for the form, I think, for just to give people time. So I think within the next 14 to 21 days, we need to come back together, and I'm sure, I know James will work with his Democratic Services team and you, Chairman, and the Vice Chairman to find a date that's convenient for you.
Do you want to go, James?
I can obviously advise on the timetable as we get closer to the 1st of March. It's obviously Budget Council, and I'm aware that prior to PERDA on the 20th of March, I know we're not looking that far ahead yet, But there is a week prior to PERDA where we have meetings almost every day here because a couple of them have been moved back due to falling within PERDA. So if it's helpful, I can look at some available dates in the diary, obviously giving 5 working days notice of papers going out, and then liaise with you as chairman. If that helps, then we can disseminate that information to all members and look to get that all in your diaries if it fits with all of your diaries.
So broadly we're looking when? The middle of March?
No, I think you're looking at possibly week beginning, looking at this, the 20th, because to get papers out, you're looking at week beginning the 27th, looking at this, but that isn't a great week because that is Budget Council, it's also culture scrutiny, it's planning, so there's a lot of meetings already in the calendar, so following that you're probably looking at the next week in March, but I don't know how long officers need to turn papers around for that. Obviously I'm aware that we've got to turn minutes around as well.
All I'd say is it's not necessarily turning the papers around, it's spending the cash. We've got to go back to government mid-March to give them the assurances that we're going to spend our year 1 allocation. So we're going to have to present, because we've quite rightly changed some of the things on that list and everything else, we've got to go back with that revised list and evidence that we're spending. So I know it shortens the time frame, but that's the one we're going to be working to for spend this year.
Okay, thank you. Ashley?
We're allowed to have more than one meeting on one day, and for both of us are driving up from miles away, it's preferable really, because when you first said at the start of the meeting that within the next fortnight we're going to have yet another meeting up here, my heart sinks. Also, for these meetings, are we allowed to zoom in from outer space, or do we have to actually be in the chamber to make decisions?
I don't believe we have hybrid meetings anymore. In the olden days when we were in COVID, I think it was. I wasn't here at that time, but I assume it was a Zoom meeting and then it was broadcast.
We don't have hybrid meetings. Is there anything to prevent us having hybrid meetings? The county seem to manage hybrid meetings perfectly well.
No, nothing in legislation to prevent it. We can now meet in the chamber, obviously. We can provide virtual meetings. We've got the facility to do Zoom meetings. It's whether members and officers as a whole want to do that or whether they want to meet in person.
Hold on, we've got a lot of hands going up. I think Adam was the first, then Mark.
So, at County Council, we do have councillors online in committee meetings, but they are not allowed to vote in those meetings.
Thanks, Jenny. I was going to say broadly the same, and my understanding is that at meetings where votes are going to be taken, councillors have to be present in person.
I believe that to be correct. So when we were all in lockdown, obviously the legislation was changed. That legislation expired. I don't know the date off the top of my head, but now we're back in the chamber. I believe that Councillor Whittington's broadly correct. Yes, we have the technology to provide it. And I think, I don't work at County Council obviously, but from what I've seen, those members do join remotely but don't vote, from what I've seen in meetings. So yes, we can allow members to join remotely. I probably urge members, if they want to watch proceedings, that we can put it on our streaming service on Public Eye, but in terms, that would just be a viewing facility, wouldn't be able to take part in the meeting.
Actually, quickly.
I'm definitely talking about participating. Maybe not. Maybe the people who are on the board, if they want to vote, would need to be here. But there are at least 5 people that could be at home and could have been home all afternoon. That the hybrid thing would be welcome, I'm sure.
Personally, I'm not a fan of Zoom meetings. Never make them work. I get excluded. Everyone or whatever. I know. Well, some people aren't. If it's easier for the people from Deeping, we can have it in my back garden because it's halfway or something, you know. And you get cups of tea and biscuits provided, you know.
When we come to discuss the actual applications, I take it we would do that in private.
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
That was appropriate. We can't be looking at every detail in public, but we make our decisions in public. But I think we have a private element to it when we can do that, if that's okay. So, Judy.
I just want, so can people now apply for the cultural, that 30,000 cultural? Once the form's done. So we don't have to wait 2 weeks to have another meeting before they can do that. So when is the form going to be done? sorry, and then you'll send it out on, yeah.
The timetable now is that ASAP forms will collect, and then James will be looking for. Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
James will be looking for a suitable date, given the requirement of the officers to get things right, which will be as early as possible, given those factors. And then the forms will be coming in during that time, and we will be able to consider those forms at the next meeting, which is at the earliest practical thing. Is that all right, John? You seem to be on with that. Everybody else happy with that? Right. Any other business? I have no other business. I've not been advised of any other business, so I won't allow any more business. So that's the end of that. And I declare the meeting closed. Thank you very, very much for your patience. And if I can have some lessons in the next, if you want me back again, if you want some lessons on how to use a button, then that would be most helpful, because I'm not good at buttons. So
I'm going to sit the other side.